Blog Talk Radio.
Here we go, let them know. Season 7, another lesson. Seek truth, social music group. South Showtime, Amuna Israel. It's new, we here to debate for you. It's clear that we breaking through. I congratulate the crew, it's just a few shows and platforms with honor and virtue. Round table special guests calling to alert you. All the information people say is relevant. Different views, model we model and settle it. If you don't know, we got what you need in South Showtime debate talk for you with the brand new season. Season. I was surfing the net, one day I found the show. Hit the download button and I was ready to go. Topics ranging from all kind of things I should know. It was bringing the glow. Blog Talk Radio, it's a whole new breed. Road to succeed, study ways to give the globe what they need. The code, unfolding the scrolls to be freed from the woes that was told by those who stampede. Seek truth, Philly, yeah, the style red. Elohim turn swords into plowshares. Bury hatchet, word flurry, swirl match it. Spit it out, then wait the world catch it. Prophecy, you must rise. Truth us lies, 2 plus 5. Fear God, you wise. Rhythm, let them have it. Give them lyrics automatic. Threads and fabric, speaking jewels is the habit. Thinking about the Torah, the scriptures, my fingers are slipping the pages and getting information that's written. Hitting the studio, charged up, blazing and spitting. It's amazing they glisten and people pay me to listen, so I continue to rock like Will Smith, rise to the top. Jazzy Jeff, the success just don't stop. First Grammy ever given in hip hop. Debate talk for you, family, get props. Yo, style, show, be true. Yo, style, show, be true. Yo, style, show, be true.
Showtime.
The Almighty Spawn.
I am
God of music.
The Almighty Black God Spawn. And this that debate talk for you. We got that straightforward truth. When you see both sides of the end, you can say the same or change all your views. This that debate talk for you. We got that straightforward truth. When you see both sides of the end, you can say the same or change all your views. This that debate talk. Debate talk. For you. We got that straight talk. That straight talk. The truth. So what you waiting on? If you ain't trying to learn it, what you hating for? Say no more. Yeah. Speak your peace, leave in peace, and don't be violent. Don't be swayed, don't get played like a violin. Ain't no fussing, just discussions in the lion's den. Hot seat burning up like a fireman. The subject matter's obvious, though it can vary. We discuss a lot of religion and politics. Keep it straight like a hockey stick. Learn as I listen in, and I'ma win. This that debate talk for you. We got that straightforward truth. When you see both sides of the end, you can stay the same or change all your views. This that debate talk for you. We got that straightforward truth. When you see both sides of the end, you can stay the same or change all your views. Yeah.
The Almighty
talk for you, radio.
Yeah. God of music.
studies to show thyself approved. You're now listening to Debate Talk V Radio.
Peace and shalom. This is Imuna Yisrael from the Sunshine State, and I am tuned into Debate Talk for You, the place where you can get intellectual exchange with no profanity. I love it. One.
Peace and blessings, family. This is your good, humble brother, Basim, representing the DMV area. And when I'm not holding down my mid-level position in corporate America, I'm tuned into the most respected debate show on the globe. That's Debate Talk for You with the esteemed host, Sal Showtime.
Hi, this is Tyrone Thompson, host of the Blog Talk Radio broadcast, Talk Real Solutions. Please tune in and listen to all of our shows 7 nights a week at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. At Talk Real Solutions, we cover a variety of topics to ensure we speak about what may be needed in our community at any time. Talk Real Solutions is the hottest blog talk radio show going on right now. You can listen to our broadcast at www.blogtalkradio.com/Talk Real Solutions, or visit our website at www.talkrealsolutions.com. Also, like our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/Talk Real Solutions. You can call in at any time during the show and add to the conversation and offer your solutions at 1-858-357-8453. That's 1-858-357-8453. Because at Talk Real Solutions, we want to make sure you have a chance to talk real solutions.
Yo, what up? It's your boy K for 8, representing East New York, Brooklyn. I'm in the building with my man Sal Showtime. He holding it down with the Debate Talk for You radio. Tune in every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Also, check out that late nights and early morning mixtape and that Black Hoodie-ish mixtape. It's your boy K for H, and you're now listening to Debate Talk for You radio. Certified, stamped it, approved it.
You don't want to miss checking out the most controversial video of the year. Everybody's talking about it. A video produced by Absolute Bible Truth teacher, Brother Josh. The video is entitled, Is There a Secret Gay Agenda Amongst the Comedic Conscious Groups? Once again, it's one of the most talked about videos right now, and you want to make sure you go check it out. So go to the website, www.absolutebibletruth.com/store. And once you get it, it's an automatic download. You don't have to wait for it to be sent to you in the mail. It's an automatic download. So once again, go check out the video, get it fast, and get it now.
Hey guys, this is G-Man from Preaching to the Choir Ministries. I got to make this quick. Yo, I'm offering General Tazariot, General Yohana, Pastor Doel, and Donald Ringo $100 per hour to come on my YouTube channel to debate me. I particularly want the ISUPK on them, particularly General Yohana or Tazariot, and I will gladly give Sal the money up front for those boys to come on my YouTube channel to prove to me whether or not Jesus actually died for the nation of Israel, or did Jesus die for the sins of the whole world? And that would include the so-called white man. And I would love to have that discussion between those two. Also, when you guys aren't listening to Debate Talk for You, I know you guys get a lot of great material here. Check out the G Podcast on the same channel. Type in G-Man, and you'll see the G Podcast every Monday at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. Every Monday. 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, where you see Christians and the Black Hebrew Israelites going back and forth. You'll see Vocab Malone, myself, you'll see Faithful, and a plethora of other people. And guys, I know you listen to Debate Talk for You. Get back to your debate, and peace. God bless.
That's our popular demand. You're now listening to Debate Talk for You radio.
Hey, what's up? This is Uncle E from the Uncle E Show on YouTube. You're now listening to Debate Talk for You Radio. Please check in every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Call up if you got questions. The number is 319
What else?
527
What else?
6239.
What else? Got it.
Please press 1 for question and comments. And also check out my show on YouTube at Renegades TV. Big shout out to my brother, Sal Showtime. Let's get it.
This is Renald Francoeur representing from Atlanta, Georgia. And when I'm not busy in the studio, I'm checking out Debate Talk for You Radio. Keep up the great work, Sal Showtime.
All right, people, we are back. Once again, this is Debate Talk for You, Season 7 of Debate Talk for You, and we are back live on the air. I appreciate all the people that's calling in via phone and via Skype by that number, 319-527-6239. That's right, we have a brand new call-in number. Once again, it's 319-527-6239. And we're back with the Relationship Challenge hosted by Amuna Israel. That's right. You know, we had started this off last season, and we had a lot of great responses from the people out there. And we are back now with the segment for the new season. The Relationship Challenge is back. This is actually volume 19. And I'm going to introduce my special guest. If you're out there, just press number 1, and we'll add you in. Just press number 1 on your phones, and we'll add you in. But I see you, Amuna. I see you right there. What's going on? How you doing? Welcome to the show.
All right. Welcome, Brother Sai. How you doing? I'm doing good. Good to be back.
Yeah, doing pretty good. Are you ready to drop this knowledge to people out there?
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting show, so I'm glad that for those who have just joined us for another season of the Relationship Challenge as well as Debate Talk for You. So definitely I look forward to this conversation.
All right, so let the people know what the title of the show is. Go ahead.
I'm actually trying to get the exact. I want to make sure that we state the exact title. Do you have it in front of you, Brother Sal? Go ahead.
Let me do it.
The exact title.
I got it right on deck. I got it on deck. It's called Sacred Sex. If sex isn't marriage, what is it? Once again, Sacred Sex. If sex isn't marriage, what is it? We got a lot of people that's interested in this topic tonight, right here on Debate. So if you're ready, I've seen a lot of responses on social media, so we're going to get it in. And once again, people, you can call into the show live. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. This person number 1, and we'll add you in. But let's go to the home panel. Let's go to 404. Who am I speaking to, Brother War? What's going on, brother? How you doing? Welcome to the show.
How you doing, my sister? How you doing? I'm on. The Water Sportsman. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, Brother War?
It's been a long time. What you been up to, brother?
Yep.
You know me. Been in the battles. I had a good debate with what's that cat name? What's the name? William Bell, man. We did about a 6-hour bid. Me and him toe to toe. So I've been out there, man. I got a lot of battles coming up, but I've been good, bro.
Okay, cool. And by the way, people, tomorrow night, let them know about your segment on Debate Talk Be Radio. Let them know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I almost forgot. Yeah, I got a show tomorrow called Racism, the Elephant in Plain Sight, right? And we're going to go in on racism like we don't normally go in, because I'm going to cover every side, from black on black, crime-wise, that, the beginning of racism. It's going to be heavy, man. I want people to come out, and we're going to really talk. We're going to talk. You want to talk? We're going to talk. I'm just going to say that about it. It's going to be real good.
I appreciate your Water Swordsman. It's back on the home panel. I'm waiting for Mayana. Let me see who this is right here. 646. Who's this? 646? 646-409. Who am I speaking to?
Oh, this is Miss Guilford. I just wanted to hear the panel. I know Mayana from Brooklyn, so I just want to hear what you have to say. I wasn't calling in to make a comment, but I am a victim of the old IUSPK marriage thing, so, I do have a little insight to what it is, how people get manipulated, when they don't know the scriptures. I do have some kind of knowledge of that.
All right, well, I hope to hear from you later on. You press number 1, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put you on hold and bring you back in later on when it's time for the Q&A segment. I want to definitely hear from you, so I appreciate you tuning in to the show. Most definitely. Let me see. I'm looking for, let me see, 313. Are you there? Who am I speaking to?
Yeah, shalom. This is Sister Judith. Good evening, Amuna. How are you, sister and brother? Yes. Yes. I'm from Detroit. Yes, and I have Sister on Tuesdays about this. That was one of the topics. We were talking about marriage. And is sex really required or is it not? I know I'm kind of, but the point is if we don't know the scriptures and understand how does it apply today with the young people, and that's the issue. The young people 20 and up, maybe to about in their 40s, that men seem to manipulate sometimes because they feel they have authority, and women are out here not understanding what their role is as a woman, and a man sometimes don't understand his role as a man. So maybe these issues can come out and we can explore those possibilities and give people with information and to help them to understand who they are as a people, as Israel. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. We're going to get started, and definitely we want to hear back from you as well as all those who are out there when the conversation gets rolling, so feel free to press 1 when we roll back around.
Thanks.
Brother Sal, he's still looking to introduce Mayana. It's a 718, Brother Sal.
Yeah, so far I don't see any 718 press number 1 yet. So if you're out there, you got to press number 1, Mayana, if you're out there. But if not, we're going to get the show started anyway. You can go ahead.
All right. Once again, thank everybody for joining us for another season of Debate Talk for You, the Relationship Challenge. It's funny because we started off the original episode 1 with Does Laying with the Woman Make Her Your Wife? So if you missed that episode, I actually re-listened to it, and that was a very good first episode. And so because, the topic just doesn't go away after you speak about it one time. It keeps coming back. People forget what they said, or, we don't have enough infrastructure or foundation, or you may go down the road and somebody else may say, who told you that? That's not true. And then we begin to resort back to the very same errors that we had in times past. So I saw this passing on social media, as usual, and someone asked the question, if sex is not marriage, then what is? And so when Brother Sal was like, what are you guys going to do? I said to Sister Mayana, hey, let's talk about it again. Because it's phrased in another way to ask the question, if sex is not marriage, then what is marriage? And so hopefully we can we can explore that topic at this time. What are your thoughts on what marriage is, what constitutes a marriage, and what are some of the things that are being done as, like we said, we have whole groups of people, whole camps that are teaching this sex is marriage doctrine, and it's leaving the family vulnerable. It's leaving the women and children vulnerable. It's also leaving the men vulnerable because they are taking up more than oftentimes they can handle with this thought process that I don't need any protection, I don't need any permission, I don't need any counsel. I can just, declare that this is what I want. I go into the act, and now I'm married. So again, many people are being short-handed with this conversation, and I look forward to opening it up so that we can hear what our thoughts on if sex is not marriage, then what is? And so with that, Brother Sal, did we get Sister Mayana yet? Or do I need to get
I believe so. Mayana, are you there?
Yes. Shalom, everybody. How are you?
Good. What's going on? Welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I missed you guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, we missed you too. We back though. We back. You back together again as usual.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I was a little disappointed that we weren't able to get some of the more vocal members of this thought to come in and help expound on why and how this particular thought on what establishes a marriage could come on and have this conversation with us, because it's better to be able to engage the people that are engaging the people, because there's a lot of points that get brought out. And what's the most salient point is that this thought asserts that marriage is, this approach to marriage is rooted in Scripture. And this is something that is not being presented as this is our thought or this is something that we have contrived, but instead the onus is being placed on the Creator and is being placed on our ancestors and saying that this is how we conducted ourselves historically and biblically. And because that is the assertion, this conversation becomes all the more urgent, because if it is true, then we must recover this type of approach. But if there are flaws in the source, then we need to discuss it. As the sister stated, it seems as if we are speaking about it again, but again tends to imply that there was a break in the conversation. I think that it's probably better understood that we are talking about it still, because it is still being said and it is still being interrogated and there are still questions. So we are going to have to continue to address it as long as it continues to be an issue or something that the people, as Sister said before, are stumbling over. So once again, I consider it a privilege to be a part of this conversation, and I'm really looking forward to it.
All right, thank you so much for that. That was the voice of Sister Mayana Johnson, home panel, and Brother Awar, the Swordsman, home panel, and I'm your co-host, Imuni Yisrael, alongside Brother Sal Showtime, who's on the 1 and 2s of the keyboard of the internet. So if you're listening online, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to share. Like Sister Mayana said, we kind of plastered it all over the very vocal social media. And the strange thing about it is that, like she said, when it comes time to actively engage, when we're not talking at each other, but now we're reasoning or talking with one another with things that are conflictive, it seems that when we come into that neutral space, people become a bit afraid. I don't want to say afraid or what the word is. They don't want to engage. Oh, I'm busy. Oh, I have something to do. But yet still, when the mic is or the floor is totally theirs, then they perpetuate this thought process. And so we have to be, we should be going forward mindful of these things and watchful, especially new people who are coming in. There are many things that you have to look for. You can't just hear what somebody says and it sounds kind of good and they showed you a little piece of a scripture and, yeah, that's true. You have to, diligently inquire about a matter. Have patience. Be willing to wait. Not the first person who answers you with this long thing on Facebook with 50 million scriptures pasted together like a little, puzzle that say, yeah, they gave a lot of scriptures. And this is a warning. So even though we may not be able to engage with those who are propagators of this doctrine, it's still a warning for those who are new that when you see this type of information floating around, you have to do your due diligence. You can no longer say, you know what, I didn't know, or they gave me some information and it sounded kind of good. And so hopefully if at least this will serve as, again, a red flag to this type of conversation. I would just start off, I don't know where Brother Sal went. Brother Sal? I don't know where he went to.
Yeah, I'm right here.
So you're still there. And so we're going to open up the floor. I'm going to throw out one of those things, and I'm going to come to Brother Awar, and then I'm going to come back to Mayana. And if you're in the audience, if you did decide to tune in, if you are the person who says, yes, sex is marriage, we would love to hear from you. If you are someone like the sister who called in earlier who said that she heard this doctrine and was exposed to it at one point in her walk, we'd love to hear from you. Like, we want to hear from the audience this season. We're going to put a lot of the audience conversation up front, and so we can begin to work with some of the questions or concerns that may be in your mind at this time. So I'll just put out one of the concerns. I heard, like, last week, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll have to scratch my head because I'm like, am I still hearing this like last week or 2 weeks ago? I heard it from an elder who went on to say, to allude to the fact that sex was marriage because, this is something that you may hear, Isaac saw Rebekah, he took her in a tent, and she became his wife. You may hear this. Chances are you have already heard this. But once again, if you are only hearing that portion, it sounds plausible. If you only go to that portion in Genesis to say where they actually come back with Rebekah and Isaac takes her and goes into the tent, you will be led to believe that that equated to a marriage contract. But when you read the entire story, it's in its entirety, you will see that fathers were involved, families were involved. Again, like we said in the last season, it was Abraham's idea. He commissioned his servant who went to Laban, which is the father or the brother of Rebekah, and the daughter of Bethuel. You understand? The whole conversation was there. The exchange was there. The bride price was exchanged. The only thing is that Isaac was not permitted to travel back there. And so instead of, he kind of got like a mail order bride, what some will say today. All of the arrangements were already underway. And they even said, stay a little bit. And then the servant said, please don't delay me, let me go. So they even wanted to have that opportunity to enjoy their daughter or their sister before she went off to marriage. So if you ever hear anyone again say that Isaac just took her, you can understand at this point in time that is an inaccuracy. Because reading it in its full context, you will understand that the elements for marriage were there. The only thing that was not there, or a person who was not there, is that the two people came together because, again, this is the land that Abraham left from. And the Most High didn't. He said, go and bring someone back because, again, he was prohibited from marrying anybody in that area. And so, therefore, he had to go back to the nativity, and he himself didn't want to go back, and so he sent an emissary. So I wanted to start with that because, truthfully, I heard that like 2 weeks ago, and I was kind of shocked that, you know, we still saying stuff like this. But with that said, we're going to go to Brother Awar, and then we're coming back to Sister Mayana. And, again, we're going to pop off with questions or comments from the audience early tonight. So go ahead and put your hand, press 1 if you would like to comment on if sex is not marriage, then what is? And let's go ahead and start addressing some of these doctrines. So with that said, Brother Awar, the mic is yours.
Right. Well, marriage is a bundle, okay, because it's the spirit that bind together, and it's the physical, because the physical part covers the reproduction, okay, so we can exist. So it's very necessary. So I'm going to go to Genesis, the first chapter, and show what was in the beginning. What was in the beginning? And how far did it go on? Are we still moving in that vibration? And then later as we go on, I want to show the difference where marriage becomes evil. Because the Most High do everything in a vibration of good and evil. You have good, which is marriage. There's something adverse to marriage, which is called whoredom, okay? Where there's no commitment. Like you said, there's no family involved. There's no commitment. There's no agreement. There's no oath. Nothing involved. You just deal with it and you keep it moving. And there's a lot of that going on the earth. So in the beginning, it was marriage, and there was an abundance of that. But now that we're on the other side, in the darkness, there's abundance of whoredom. So I just wanted to put that out. Let me read this right quick. This is Genesis. Now I'm going to pass the mic. This is Genesis, the first chapter, starting at 26. It says, and the Most High said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Them have dominion. That's why it transcended them. It says, let them have the dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over the cattle and over all the earth and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So there's a purpose to man and woman too. Okay? Then it says, so the Most High created man in his own image. In the image of the Most High created he him. Male and female created he them. And the Most High blessed them and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the reason why I wanted to read that, because in this society, on this side of the earth, in the darkness, you have men and men marrying each other. That's not no marriage, not according to the scripture. Okay? This is the only marriage there is between a man and a woman. Why? Because the spirits are intertwined. That's why I said whatever the Most High brought together, let no one put asunder. And then the physical had to be because that's what keeps the reproduction going on. That's what brings generations of other people on the earth. There's nothing else beside that. Even that ordinance is with the animals. They do it the same way. So sex is marriage, okay? But where it goes off is when people do not keep the right ordinances. But I'm just going to say that, and I'm going to come back later and show the other side. I'm just going to pass the mic right quick.
Well, thank you for that. Sister Amina brought out the fact that there is still this continual forwarding of the idea that sex is what constitutes this holy convocation. And this is wildly problematic because we see throughout Scripture that where sex is taking place, marriage does not always follow. So the idea that having sex or that you can hump your way into a holy convocation is simply not supported by Torah. It's not supported by our ancestors, neither is it demonstrated in the text. As it's just stated when giving the example of Isaac and Rebekah, very often you will hear the conversation begin at 67. So once someone tells you that we're going to begin at 67, as the sister stated, there should be those moving flags going on. Because at 67, there are 66 verses you have skipped. And it's done deliberately. Because if you go through all of this stuff, which would be order, which would be decent, which would be intelligent, then there's absolutely no way you would come to the conclusion of innocent omnipotent. That is not what happened. And in order to reveal that, you have to have due diligence in your study. Walt brought up Genesis. And then at the conclusion of the matter, he made the statement, sex is marriage. But Genesis doesn't support sex being marriage either. And I prayerfully we will have an opportunity to go back and look at the Genesis narrative to show that even in the first recorded marriage, which would have been between Sarah and Adam, there are steps that happen as well. So I think that it's great that we're having conversations, and I'm hoping that as we continue with the conversation, we're going to get into clarifying Exodus 24 and 16, clarifying Deuteronomy, clarifying Genesis, because these are our Torah portions. When we're talking about Genesis, when we're talking about Exodus, when we're talking about Deuteronomy, we're talking about Torah, we're talking about law. This is different from just speaking about the accounts. It's different from just speaking about the records. This is discussing the mind of the Most High. This is discussing the mind of the Creator and His intent for His creation. So we have to approach this. And this is another thing that in our conversations, my conversation with Amuna, my conversation with other elder women and brothers also, the element of fear is something that has to be in all of these conversations. The sense or the intent towards gratification or the intent towards creating something for one's own pleasure, that has to be put to the side because fear has to come first. If the Most High has already told us that our destination is that we are to fear Him and to keep His commandments at the forefront of every conversation, has to be that fear. And if we have that fear, we are less likely to engage in, create, or accept erroneous doctrine. So conversations like this, where we go into the conversations that are supposed to the people, it's not to hear ourselves speak. You know, again, this is not repetition for the purpose of repetition. It is review for the purpose of rebuilding, reclaiming, and restoring. So I think Awar may be our representation for this conversation about sex being marriage. I'm not certain if he still holds that position. I did hear, and I want to acknowledge the fact that he is saying there's a bundle, which means that there are other components that are expected in the process. There is a process. The segment was originally called Sacred Sex, and it was extended to be sealing the deal. Because at the end of the matter, it's very often stated where people will concede that sex is not the only part of marriage, the statement becomes, but it seals the deal. So the question becomes, what deal? What got sealed? What was discussed? And Muna has a very good analogy for that. I don't know if she's provided it for you yet, but I will refrain from giving it to her because she does it so well. And prayerfully, when it goes after her, she'll give you this analogy about goes towards the idea of sealing the deal, the process of making a deal. What closes the deal? What are the processes in the middle that have to be understood and established? So when we say things like, oh, sex seals the deal, even in that, we should be interrogating what words, what the language is implying or emphasizing. Because marriage is one of the covenants, one of the things that we are allowed to do, that we have agency for, creating relationships, creating families. We do that independently. It's something that the Most High has. It's a power that the Most High has endowed us with to make these unions. The families got together and created more families. And like Awar brought out, that he gave this order to us to replenish. It is what our duty is. So it's very important that we understand this assignment and get it right. If this is an assignment directly from the Creator, we want to get it right. So with that, I yield the floor.
All right, thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Mayana. That's our first round. We're going to go ahead and check on Brother Sal. See if you're there, Brother Sal, if you have any hands in the air, if we can hear from the audience, any questions or comments. And we go from there.
Yes, we do. We have a few people standing by, waiting to get in the conversation. If it's your first time calling in, this is one of the rules out here. There's no foul language. When you call in, you got to keep it clean, keep it professional, just to let you know. We have people listening with the children. And if you have any background noise, just mute your mics, to avoid interruptions, and mute your phones. But we're going to go to the phone lines right about now. Let's go to 347-303. You're live in air.
Shalom. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Sister Aisha. Yeah, I'm Sister Aisha from Brooklyn, New York. How you doing, Amuna? Empress Amuna.
Hey, what's up, Sister Aisha? What's going on?
What's a God? Yes. The whole thing with the sex of marriage, I've heard, the ISUPK and other groups, and I know that most of those groups kind of all stem from the same main group in Harlem in the day. I've heard the doctrine, but I haven't only heard them. I've heard other Israelites with this doctrine of sex being marriage. But then I always remember the story in the book of Genesis with Jacob and his daughter Dinah, where Dinah, I think she went out to see about the daughters of the land, and I think Shechem, I'm quoting it, I'm not reading it verbatim, but Shechem, saw her, he beguiled her, he laid with her, and then his father showed up afterwards to ask, for her hand in marriage after his son had already laid with Dinah, and Jacob was not happy, and Jacob's two sons, Shimon and Lewi, were not happy, and therefore, they ended up killing everybody, all of the Shechem's people. The thing about it is that from the ancient days, from what's described, no, they did not have marriage ceremonies as we do today. However, it appears as though the families came together, and brothers did go and ask of the sister's hand in marriage. They didn't just lay with the sister without speaking to the family. So there was some form of officiation. And a lot of these brothers, they want to skip over that. And I've heard the thing with Isaac and Rebecca, But the thing about it is, with Isaac and Rebecca, Isaac's father sent, like Imuna was just going over, sent his servant to inquire of a wife. The servant must have had to ask the Rebecca's parents if she can go, and if asked her, she had a say in it as well. So I don't think even in that case there was just a laying with and that constitute marriage. And in this day and age, when we have so many single-parent households as well as so many, no one taking accountability for the children, or men not taking accountability for their wives, or even wives not taking accountability for their responsibility as a wife for their family and husband. We can't be in a situation so loose, because our people are now getting back into this law. They need discipline. They need order. And I'm going to just leave it right there, Dehu.
Well, for that was the voice of Sister Aisha. Thanks for tuning in, Sister Aisha, and lending your voice to the conversation. You brought some very poignant points as it relates to we need discipline in this return. We can't come back slack, because we just came from a whole, millennia of slackness. So, and this is the thing that we're seeing oftentimes being run away from, certain stringent laws that's going to keep order and purge out certain desires that lead to chaos. So that's a good point. I want to thank you for sharing it. And Brother Sal, anyone else on the phone line, feel free to share your thoughts. Have you heard the doctrine? Were you snared with the doctrine? Were you, did it lead you away? All kind of stuff like this. It's kind of like halfway testimony, halfway, conversation. So again, Brother Sal, the mic is yours.
All right, let's go to the next caller. Let's go to 347-731. You're live on air.
Okay, Shalom, Zakah. This is Zakah in the Army, Bot Levy. I want to weigh in on that question, and I want to say that there's no such thing as sex equaling marriage under any circumstance, not in Israelite ways. And it obviously, as my daughter Aisha brought out, she's talking about the story of Dinah and Shechem. Even though he had laid with her, he still had his father Kabor come and ask for her in marriage and the dowry that he was ready to offer for her, even though he had already done the act. And what was the response? Such a thing is not done in Israel. This is before the written law. This is before the Mosaic law comes down. When we talk about Isaac and we talk about Jacob, even when Jacob goes to Laban to what did he do? They made a terms. It was a contract. I worked 7 years for this woman, and then you give her to me. And even though Laban tricked him and gave him Leah instead, he said, okay, then you got to work 7 more years. And then he had to work 6 years for his substance. So it wasn't just a bit, you just jump in the Utah and that's the end of that. No. You had to have ceremony, and it always was the exchange between families. When we look further in our history, even though some of the proponents of sex equal marriage don't acknowledge this, we see that there were ketubot, written contracts. And this is necessary with people who keep records like we did, so that you don't have this mix-up about which wife was first and which wife was 15 and what child was this and this child was that. We kept records. If you look at the Chronicles, you see so-so, the son of so-and-so, and whatnot. We had Chronicles. So we kept the records, and the records were, particularly when you talk about proving marriage and who belongs to who and proving your lineage, these were things that were necessary. Even in the case of the marriage sheet that had to be brought back to the parents in case the man accused the woman of not being a maid, this itself was another part of the record. And when we talk about marriage is just not the laying down of two people. Any two people, dogs and cats do that. That doesn't constitute a marriage. A marriage is more than that. When they speak about the virtuous woman or the woman of valor in Proverbs 31, they talk about a woman who's able to manage a household. She's been taught certain things in how to manage her household. So it's not just a matter of her laying down and having the children, and that fulfills her obligation as a wife. And for a husband, it doesn't mean laying down siring these children and fulfilling your obligation as a husband. That is not what does it. I'm telling you, we need to get out of this foolish idea of what we pass off as marriage by laying with people. That is not marriage. Marriage is the coming together of families. It is an observance of our laws too, and it's in Torah as to how we do it. It's in Torah about even when you want to take more than one wife. All of this is written in Torah. So I don't know how we think we're supposed to get away from this this thing and engage in foolishness. And it just gets on my nerves because I've heard it for too many years now, where we're supposed to be people of understanding, and yet we have not come to the full realization that this laying and loose alliances constitutes marriage. Zehu.
Wow, that was the voice of Iman Naami. Turned up early. Greetings, Iman Naami, and welcome. Your voice is most welcome here. And that's the elder. When you hear the elder speaking, you already said you rise before the hoary head and extend some respect. Iman Naami has been in the nation many decades, longer than most of us has been alive. And so she's seen and heard a lot, and I thank you for sharing and even gracing us with your presence this evening because, again, people are bed hopping, because we are being told information, misinformation. Families are being torn apart. So this is a very important topic. Why? Because in 2016, although it may seem obvious to us, there are still many who are propagating this narrative. And so with that, Brother Sal, I'll give it back to you and see if anybody else is on the phone line, and then we're going to come back to the panel. We're going to continue maybe some other viewpoints. I know Brother Awar kind of sounded like, he did say at the end of his conversation, I wanted to touch that a little bit because he still kind of said sex is marriage. I just wanted to say something really quick. In mathematics, when you say A is B, that means it's the same thing. You understand? Is equal. So in the equation that we're talking about, we're saying that if we say sex is marriage, that means it is equal to it. But evidence, history, the testimonies, the law proves out that it does not equal. That means that someone is telling an untruth. Someone is bearing false witness, and we have to call it what it is. If we can go to more than 2 or 3 witnesses within the Torah and see plainly, especially in the whole of Leviticus when it talks about rightful sexual encounters, and we can see clearly that these encounters do not constitute marriage, we have to reassess this doctrine because, and like I said, especially for those who are coming in, there are many places in the case of Tamar, in the case of both Tamars, because in the case of Tamar and Judah and the case of Tamar and Amnon, which was David's son, and then we have so many narratives. We have Dina's narrative. We have so many narratives that show you that just because someone laid with someone, that did not equate marriage. For instance, David did not marry Bathsheba when he first committed adultery with her. Just because he laid with her, that wasn't marriage. That was adultery. So once again, we can just bring it all out, pull it all out the closet, and let's take a look at all of it. But before we do, Brother Sal, I'm going to go ahead and give it back to you, and let's see what's going on the phone line.
All right, once again, people, if you're on social media, you can call in. You know that number, 319-527-6239. When you dial that number, press number 1, and we'll add you to the conversation. Title of the show, Sacred Sex. If sex isn't marriage, what is it? So let's go to the next caller. Let's go to 913-488. You're live on air.
Brother Sal, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. What's going on? How you doing?
Yes, what's up? This is a first-time caller. My name is Brother Yakel, the mighty Hebrew Lion of Judah. I represent an organization called Campaign for Biblical Literacy. I have definitely heard the doctrine that sex equates to marriage, but I think what we're now realizing is that in the beginning, the Most High created sex for marriage and marriage only, and we're the ones that perverted it. You can talk to a lot of Christians, and I don't think I've ever spoken to a Christian who even understands what marriage truly is. I don't even think that too many of us Hebrew Israelites really understand what marriage is. And let me start by saying this. Marriage is a covenant. It is a blood covenant. The same way that we have a blood covenant with the Most High through the blood of the Messiah, the Mashiach Yahusha, the marriage relationship mirrors that blood covenant. Let me explain a little further. I don't want to be too graphic, and I'll be short. When a man and woman come together to consummate their marriage, in that marriage union, the Most High intended for a female to be a virgin. Now, we know that females, when they're virgins, they have what's called a hymen. So when the consummation of their marriage, when the male goes into that female, blood is shed, creating a blood covenant. Marriage is a blood covenant, and it symbolizes and represents the blood covenant that we have with the Most High, our relationship with Him as His children, as part of His covenant family. So I think if we need to understand what it is, and that's key, that's key to understanding most of the scriptures. We have a relationship with the Most High through a blood covenant, and marriage is a blood covenant. But once again, I think that I've heard the doctrine, like I've said, and I think the only reason that it is not is because we perverted it. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you for that. You brought out some very interesting points, and it's much appreciated because I was having a similar conversation as it related to that. When I listened back to the first episode we have, "This Name with the Woman Make Her Your Wife," it seemed as though we were having two different conversations because oftentimes when we look at the Torah and we look at now, we tend to have two different conversations because we have the intention, what the Creator intended, and then we have what has happened since then. And when it's presented in that way and agreed, the actual intention, the blood and the covenant it is very true. But this is not how it's being presented today. And I kind of speed it up a little bit to today because if a lot of these new people who are just coming in hear just that portion of the conversation, they would be like, yeah, that's true. But even within that, like I said today, that's not what's happening. So I definitely agree the intention was for it to be within the confines of a covenant. But since humanity has taken it outside of that confine, I wanted for us to have the conversation of today, now that it has been perverted, it's kind of like, but you weren't supposed to sweat while you was eating food. It was supposed to come up. It changed since then. You wasn't supposed to have pain in childbirth. It changed since then. You know what I'm saying? And so people are laying with one another, not going into marriage contracts. It has changed. And so I would just ask the caller, in today's space and time, what would you straightforward tell somebody who comes to you with that conversation, if the caller is still on the line, what would you say to the person who comes to you to say, hey, I was listening to this YouTube video and the brothers are saying, if I lay with this person, then that's my husband. What would you say to that person?
Well, hello, can I still be heard?
Yes, you could be heard. Go ahead.
Okay, definitely. Well, I would definitely tell them that no, that doesn't necessarily constitute marriage, but you also have to make them understand that there's accountability. You just don't go around and lay with anyone. So, it doesn't constitute marriage, and you don't have to be bound to someone just because you oopsed and messed up and did that. But we have to begin to understand that comes with accountability. There's a lot of accountability because when you give yourself to someone in that way, there's spirits that transfer between the two individuals. So it's all about accountability. But no, I wouldn't advise that person to tell them that just because that happened, that is now your husband. There's a heart that's involved. There's a lot of other things that are involved in it, but that's what I would tell them. I wouldn't agree and say, well, just because you've done that, now you are married to that person. But I would want to definitely get across to that individual, stop it, cut it out. That's not what was intended. There's accountability. There's a lot that happens when you give yourself over to someone like that. That was not the Most High's intention. So I agree that that's what I would say to him.
Thank you so much. Because, again, there's a lot of people running around with the man saying, you my Isha, you know, because, you know, like Mayana likes to say, you know, you maybe had a Netflix and chill or whether or not you was reading a Torah portion and then all of a sudden the next morning, you know, you my wife, right? So there's a lot of that conversation floating around in the atmosphere. I'm going to come to the panel, and then we're going to go back to the phone lines for those who just joined us. The title is, I want to get it correctly, Sacred Sex. If sex is not marriage, then what is? So I'm going to come back to Sister Mayana. I know she's been hanging out in the dugout, and then we're going to come to Brother Awar and then back to Brother South. So once again, for all the callers, thank you for calling in. And definitely, if you have something else, just press 1 again. You'll come back in the queue, and you can let your voice be heard. Sister Mayana, the mic is yours.
All right. Thank you. I want to address one of the points that the caller brought out about accountability in sex. There are those who want to forward the idea that sex is marriage, and then they package it in the idea that if you have a conversation that contests that idea, then what you are advocating for is promiscuity, which is the furthest from the truth. This particular statement is a manipulative one. It is a statement that creates or contrives a false dilemma or a false dichotomy. It implies to the person that if you are saying that sex is not marriage, then what you are doing is you are creating an avenue for promiscuity. And you simply want to be free to have as many sexual partners as you choose without having the accountability of commitment. Now, that is the furthest from the truth in my experience. From the way that I have taught this and from the way the elders around me have taught this, I can't speak for everyone, so I won't attempt that. But in my experience, the way the lesson is taught is that you don't have sex at all. So from not having sex at all, it's impossible to conclude that we are advocating for promiscuity. We are saying that unless you have the previous steps, family involvement, of the written instrument or token of a vow, if there hasn't been the celebration and the inclusion where other people have publicly acknowledged that this is something you're going to enter into, then there is no room for sex. Sex doesn't happen before those things happen first. You have consulted the elders. The elders are involved. The family has consented. You have hammered out the details of the deal. Once you have hammered out the details of the deal, then you can seal it. But before there are any details, before there is a conversation, there is no deal and there is no sealing. And that is the point. So that's the first thing I wanted to bring out, because I want it on the table and off the table. We are not saying that if you accept that sex is not marriage, that what you are by default accepting is that you can liberally have sex with people and you are off the hook. That's absolutely not the case. And I'm being a little repetitive here because I'm trying to emphasize that it's not what's being said. And when you hear people say that, for me, it's immediately, signals to that that's a mind trick. They are playing tricks with your mind. They are teasing your spirit to say, oh, you just want to be a harlot, or you just want to be a whore. You don't want to believe in sex is marriage because you don't want to be responsible. When you sit back and you look at the argument, the opposite is true. If a person is telling you that all they can offer you is the D, that is a person that is not giving you any other commitment. That is a person that is skirting accountability. I don't want to ask your father. I don't need to meet your family. I'm going to get you hemmed up in the field. We're not going to tell nobody. That's skirting accountability. That is what is the thing that is forwarded promiscuity, because where there is no accountability, there is no protection, and Scripture provides protection on all sides. It is a very thorough document. Our Torah, our laws, our instructions are very thorough. And another thing that the sister brought up before she was listening, occasions where sex between parties in no way is understood as a marriage. When she gave the example of the callers, and our sister gave the example of Diana, who
engages in sex with Shechem, and he has to come back now and do the things that were not done. So the act did not seal any deal. The deal was made after the fact because it had to be done. It's punitive. Exodus 22:16, for example, is punitive. It says if you do this thing, you now must do this other thing because what you did was out of order. So she gave the example of Dinah. She gave the example of Tamar and Judah. She gave the example of Tamar and Amnon. And the example of Tamar and Amnon, her half-brother, he had desired her, taken her sexually. And at that point, after he had not married her, she did not understand herself as a married woman. She understood herself as defiled. And she immediately implored him, come, let's go back to our father and do this correctly. And when he discards her, she says, what you're doing now is even worse than what you had done before. Defiling her was the one thing, but then denying her the covering, the permission, the legitimacy of marriage was worse. Another thing, we talked before about the misunderstanding of the 67th verse. Obviously, you can come up with whatever understanding you choose if you start at the 67th verse. And there's this idea of in the tent, out the tent, voila, that's the wife. Well, this brings to remembrance the occasion where Lot finds himself in a cave with his daughters. I don't think that anyone would argue in the cave, out the cave, he was married to his daughters. But clearly, sex happened. They went into the cave, his daughters had sex with them, and when they exited the cave, I don't see anywhere in the scriptures where these women are recorded as Lot's wives. This is recorded as sex happened. It was inappropriate. There's a list of inappropriate sexual relationships that are recorded for us in Leviticus. In the tent, out the tent, in the cave, out the cave, that is not how a holy convocation is created. We have a lot of considerations that must come first. Why? Because we are a holy people. And we like to say that when it's convenient. And we like to say that in whatever context is appealing. But when we're talking about the thing that is going to judge us, limit us, to keep us beholden to something, all of a sudden we're loosey-goosey with the rules. We are holy people in every aspect of the term, and every aspect of our actions, and marriage being one of the most sacred of those. So, as we continue with these conversations and different examples come up, I'll address those, because I would like to hear them be brought out so that I can address them again as they come up instead of trying to rain them all down on you on my turn to speak. So, but yes, we have brought out, for example, that sex, by example, is not the same. That, like just to say, A equals B. It's not. A is not B in this case. And our let's just say the Torah bears these things out. And with that, I guess I might.
All right, thank you for that. That was the voice of Sister Mayana. We're going to check on Brother Award, the swordsman, at this time. Brother Award, is it correct that you used to subscribe to or attend places that subscribe to this doctrine? If you would like, can you edify us a bit more on it? You would be more, versed or apt to speak on it. And let me know if I'm mistaken concerning that. So if you could, Brother Award, can you edify us a bit more on the doctrine and kind of how it played out and what you saw as a result of it?
Right. Well, what happened was, here you have these young men, okay, the world's against them, and the biggest thing they were feeding the young men was, hey, you could have multiple wives. But what the problem with that was, they didn't give the understanding, okay, because we all fell into it. I mean, that's like telling a lion there's a whole house of steaks over there, a young lion, So they didn't give the understanding. The understanding was that you're bound to those women forever. Till one die, you have to provide, like Sister said, deal with the family. There's a whole bundle of stuff that you have to do. Where we took it as, hey man, the most famous excuse was, yeah man, they all wicked. We in hell. When you want to go and hormone, you found your good justification, wicked thing, thought to do it. You say, well, we're in captivity. You ain't going to find no virgin. I heard that a million times. Oh, you ain't going to find no virgins. Oh, man, these women, she done had a million men already anyway. You make up those excuses in order to get your rocks off. So that's what happened. They didn't get the understanding that you're bound from the beginning. If you did have the multiple wives or whatever, you was bound to them until you die. Okay? Or you took a wife, you were supposed to take care of her. You was bound till you die, and you're supposed to be with her forever. That's what they left out. And a lot of brothers was just hit with women, didn't even like them, probably even knew the woman's name. Lay with them, then next you know the food get involved. Next you know they'll find out 6 months, 8 months later, yeah, they don't even like each other. Then have them the separation and the kids up. And that thing still going on. So that's what happened. That's what I saw. But I wanted to bring something else, but I'll go on the next one. I was going to bring out this one in Deuteronomy. I'll bring it out on the next mic, but that's all I wanted to say. That's what happened with that. But I'm going to pass the mic on that.
Thank you so much for always being transparent, Brother Awar. But I have another question. You were told oftentimes the men are told their allowances. At the same time, and I know you touched on it a little bit, were they told or held accountable for not providing, for were they given an outline of what you are expected to do, or was it just a free for all? Like, hey, you know what I mean? You can have as many women as you want. Like, exactly, was there any accountability is kind of the question I'm asking. When the men did turn up and the families, were just being recycled and broken up, was there any level of accountability for that?
Yeah, they had. See, what happened was, it was a big thing like, that's their business. But you had like the elder Marshall, which was the head. Now, he walked the walk and talked the talk. He was one guy you never saw him with a bunch of women. He had one wife that he had from when they were young, and he died with her. And he rehearsed these righteous acts as far as marriage. He did what a marriage was required, and he was with the same woman forever. And I can tell you another brother, the brother named Nathaniel, that's over IUIC. He has the same wife that he had when he first walked through the door right now. So there's brothers that did keep that on their own, but a lot of us, I put myself in that, that was a license, we like women. You get a woman, then you make up excuses, she's getting on my nerves. And then you find some kind of, problem with her, and then you say, well, she's gone, or she got demons. There's a famous one, she got demons on her. Then you go get another one, and you don't really put her away, but you do things to make her try to kind of like, she end up saying, I can't deal with this. There's a lot of different reasons. Everybody got their own different reasons, but, there was a lot of young men, and they like the fact that they could have more than one woman. And they use that as an excuse, or a lot of them did not keep that marriage thing, Very few brothers I still see with their old wives. They got new wives. Very rare. Nathaniel got the only one, in Marshall, the only one I know that to this day, or Marshall passed, but Nathaniel got, he's the only one I know still got the same wife. But there's it.
Wow, I want to thank you for that, because I think you brought up a point in illustrating that those who fell for and succumbed to that doctrine, they didn't, like the Torah says, I believe it's in the Proverbs, they didn't delight in the wife of their youth. And now, because they recycled so many times, now when they've gone down the lane, there's nobody there. And that's something that oftentimes people don't speak of, that the men who do subscribe to this and do not nourish what they have end up not having anything. And in their old age, have to look for new partners to try to start up all over again. And so, thank you so much. Go ahead.
Let me just one quick. It ain't really long. See, the thing was, too, they never really enforced how dangerous and how much of a consequence it is to do that. Like, they didn't enforce that. Like, if you had your wife and you end up passing out or putting her away, they didn't make that like a major severe act. Like in the scriptures, that you can't do that. you can get killed for that. But they didn't make that priority in the nation. Like, hey, you got enough wives, that wasn't our business. But they didn't make that priority. Like, men took the initiative to do it on their own. You know what I'm saying? But nobody really would check you hard, like, you can't do that. That's why a lot of women got beat up and got hurt and got dismantled, got put in bad situations because nobody really was hard on that. Like, y'all don't do that. There wasn't no fear with that. That's all I'm saying.
Very, very good information. Good information. Thank you so much. Again, for those who are listening, we're talking about right now, we're having someone on the line, which is Brother Aurora. He came from this space. He came from this doctrine, and he's telling us retrospectively what happened and why it happened and how it happened. I think this is very good information. So you don't just think we're just, okay, everybody's just jumping on one side. We're actually seeing this is wisdom and understanding that comes in the future, why we have to pay more attention to these areas, because nation building starts with a family. You can't nation build without a family, and you can't have a family without strong units, and so this is very, very important as we think it's just smashing people together and jumping on the scene and saying, hey, we're here. And it's definitely not that at all. But right now I'm going to check on Brother Sal. He's a little bit quiet. I know he's probably tippy-tapping in social media land. Brother Sal, are you there? And if you are, let us hear what's going on with you, and then we can check on the phone line.
Yes, I am here. I'm all over social media to respond, and definitely checking out the show. And we got some more people lined up waiting to get in the conversation. Again, see you guys. The number is 319-527-6239. We're about to open up the phone lines once again. For those people that actually I opened up the phone lines early. If you want to say something else, or to call back in, or not call back in, if you want to say something else, press the number 1 twice. But if you didn't press the number 1, it's your first time calling in. Let's press number 1 one time, and we'll add you in. Let's go to the phone lines, see what the people got to say. Let's go to 248-242. You're live on the air.
Hi, can you hear me?
You're loud and clear.
Hello? Oh, hi. This is Brother Ezra Israel. How y'all doing?
Okay, all right.
Oh, pretty good.
We all right.
Hey, shalom,
right.
Welcome.
Shalom. I was going to say that I haven't been able to hear everything, but my views on sex being marriage, I think that is accurate. And the reason why is because I feel as though any other view on that idea is going to create more promiscuity in the community because you're making sex of less value. Like, it's not that important. No, I had sex here, and there a couple times, but this time it's really going to matter because I'm going to get it in writing. And I think that plays a bad role with our people. And when I look at it too, whenever I have this discussion with my family, I look at it like, how is it gonna affect the youth? How is it gonna affect the next generation? Is sex important enough in their minds that this is something that you do with your spouse that you're gonna be with forever, or is it not just is it something that's just that adults do for leisure every once in a while until they decide that they want to be with this one person or multiple people forever and be committed? I think that in the Torah, like the brother said earlier, I came in, he said that, we perverted sex in our own minds. We made it something that it wasn't intended to be. And right now we're in a stage where we're rebuilding things and restoring our order. This one sister brought up how we need a record, and we do. We need a record for a lot of things. We need municipality. We need records for when we buy property, for when we move, when we have businesses. We need a record for all of that. I'm in Michigan. I don't know of any elders out here. It's just me and my family right now. Other people out there, and I know there's a lot of people on the East Coast and down south and stuff. You guys have organizations set up, and you guys can network with each other. But I'm pretty sure there's a lot of new people who come in who feel a tad bit isolated by themselves, alone. Like how I was when I first came in. There was nobody talking about they was an Israelite. 10 years ago in my area. But when as a man, when I have that viewpoint that sex is marriage, when I actually started practicing that, I said to myself, I made a commitment to myself and the Most High that I wasn't going to just sleep with any woman, because I feel as though I'm not showing love to my neighbor, my fellow brother, who might marry this woman and love her forever, if I go ahead and lay down with her and take advantage of her like that. That was something that was convicted in my own heart. And I think that's something that I teach my children too, is to love their neighbor as themselves. And I feel as though that those key principles are important. And I think that sex needs to be viewed as something very important and not something idle that we play around with. Because like the sister said, family is very important politically, socially, economically, on a local level. And if we're going to rebuild our nation, it's going to start with family. And whenever we're talking about the laws that brought us together and everything like that, like it's all going to start with family. That's all I want to say. I'm sorry. Take it too long.
All right. I want to thank the caller, Brother Ezra, for calling in and letting his voice be heard. For those who just joined us, we're talking about sacred sex. If sex is not marriage, then what is? And as the brother was talking, and as he was just speaking, something just hit my mind. Again, men and women think very differently, but collectively, we can get further when we exchange ideas, as such as in this Forming a Relationship Challenge. And as he was speaking, I realized that the authors oftentimes of this narrative are men. And the way he just described it for me is as a mechanism that a man has to put in his mind in order to stop a certain behavior that from the beginning wasn't positive. And so it's a safety precaution for the man to say, hey, I have to hold off on this because if I do this, this means. But oftentimes, women are not coming from that perspective. And this is why in the conversation, women are the ones who are being convinced of what they already know. They're being convinced to go against that, to agree with what the man needs to. If you can understand what I'm saying, women are coming from the perspective, oftentimes, unless she's just out there, she's not coming from the perspective if I'm going to lay with this person, is just to do it, unless you just have some wild out there person. But the man, because he is doing that and because he is laying with people who he has no intention of being with, from what I heard from Ezra, and this is just me personally, the mechanism that sex is marriage, it does different things for different people, for different genres. And I just think, as we were talking, I'm sorry, it just hit me like, okay, if you flip it around the other way, I still don't say it is but I can understand what you're saying and why you're using that as a mechanism to control a behavior that you've already concluded is not right. So I want to thank you for sharing that. I would just say, as it relates to the children, and we're going to come back to the line. If your line is open, you have background noise, just feel free to mute your phone. As it relates to the children, it's like a package deal, and we took a piece out the package. You understand what I'm saying? So as it relates to the children, the way in which I and my family will speak to our children and those children we come in contact with is that we put the piece back into the package. The world, if we allow the world to give our children the story, they are the ones who took the piece out the package and told them that it was okay. And all we have to do as we're returning is put it back in there. So when you speak about marriage, that is the confines from which intercourse it belongs. It doesn't belong anywhere else. And so, again, we have to take control of the conversation. If your children are out there in public school, if you have them watching what's on the television, you have to take control of that conversation. And so from the onset, both the male and the female would understand the value of themselves, because oftentimes everybody's looking for a virgin daughter, but who's looking for a virgin son? You understand what I'm saying? Because how many covenants
Is he going around entering? As the caller said earlier, he's entering into blood covenants. Well, he must be really bloody if he's just going into all of these blood covenants all over the place. So we have to teach the male as well as the female to value themselves so that when they enter into these spaces, they can last. You know, the marriages will last because, you know, you're coming from a different space. So I just want to thank the caller. Again, I'm going to come to Brother Sal, see if anybody has any hand in the air, and we can go ahead and proceed with this conversation. And we're going to come back and check on the panel in a little bit. Brother Sal?
All right, once again, the number is 319-527-6239. This is the Relationship Challenge, Volume 19. By the way, the show is archived, so you can always go back and check it out. You go to the iTunes, go to YouTube, and all the social media outlets, and just put in Debate Talk for You and check out the archives later on. But let's go back to the phone lines. We have a lot of people standing by, and we appreciate the people who are letting your voice be heard. And that's what it's all about, Debate Talk for You. Let's go to 313-695. You're live on air.
Shalom.
3-1. Hey, Shalom. How you doing?
Shalom. Okay. Oh, I hear background music. Sound. Wait a minute. I've been knowing so long, I forgot what I was going to say. This is Judith from Detroit. I've been listening to a lot of comments concerning family, the law, what's in the scriptures, but not enough about family, but the family structure. Back in the day, being in this walk for 30 years. And some of the things we must go back in the old, that is in our blood of what we do in terms of involving our families when it comes in mates. Just like when it was planned with Abraham and his son and how his servant, where the parents would get involved in the courtship of their children or adult children. And they would inquire, like today it was a young man that went to the father and the stepfather for permission to marry the daughter. And that was elegant, and that was a sound scriptural judgment that we need to get back to today. But we must remember, so many people now are just waking up, are starting to be conscious, and they're stumbling around in the dark of trying to figure out which to navigate, especially when it comes to relationships. Because like when Sister Imuna said, also for the male, what about the male? And what about the woman that is not but lived a virtuous life, maybe had a divorce because he committed adultery? Is she tarnished? So we must have an understanding and a dialogue about the men and what their purpose are in marriage, their ideology, what have they been taught. And we need counselors. We need men out here to teach men how to be marriage material, what is to be expected of them in a husband role. And like we know, Israel at times is jacked up. We must recognize that. Today our young people are thriving. They're thirsting for our knowledge. And we give them scriptures and not examples. I could speak on and on, but I just want to touch, if anybody, I'm just throwing it out there. What about our family? What about that involved in the marriage, involved in helping of the decisions of who we choose? No one has really touched on that. And that is coincide with the scriptures. Zehu.
Did I say something about that? Well,
all right, go ahead. Go ahead, Brother Owa.
Okay. Our generation is kind of polluted, right? And that's why the gospel is so necessary, because what it does, it reboots us in the spirit, okay? How not just the moving the commandments, but when you get these situations where there's problems, you know how to move in the spirit to fix it. So we now have to start teaching our children these golden commandments, because we're kind of contaminated from the rudiments of this world. But the problem can be fixed because we got the gospel, which reboot us back in the spirit, and we got to start dealing with our children. But a lot of us are still rejecting the knowledge. Okay, we're not really applying it. We're doing what we want to do. And that's why we still have these problems laying around. That the gospel is a sure way to finish it, but a lot of us don't even believe. They think that's some Christian garbage, and that's the finishing of the statutes, how to really execute it properly where everything runs smooth. Because you're gonna, our forefathers didn't have that when they run into these different entanglements. They didn't understand how to deal with it, like David. Okay, he didn't know how to deal with lust when he saw Bathsheba. He went right into it. He didn't have that knowledge of the spirit, how lust works, how it moves and filter in one's body, how we're built with this flesh, how this flesh works. We didn't have that understanding. And we still don't want to accept that understanding. That's why you have a lot of these discrepancies today. And it won't go away unless we learn that side and that understanding of the spirit. It's not going to go away. Where do we start? So we need to start teaching our kids that, learn it for ourselves, teaching our children that, and we can act that evil that's been put in us from this learning and being in our enemy's land. But that's where it starts with our children now. But I'm just going to pass the mic.
Thank you for that, Brother Awar. It does, the children are right there, nigh onto us. And in helping them, we help ourselves. So I would have to agree to the extent that we have to put it, in them. We have to begin to autocorrect some of the things. But like many callers said, we have to first acknowledge that there's something wrong. Gavert Judah just said the same thing. And I'm big on that. If we don't say that it was wrong, if we don't say that that was erroneous teaching, if we don't say these things, if we don't admit these things, then we can't fix them because we're not going to have any reason to want to fix them. And so that's why I asked the war about his past. I asked him to share with us things that at this point he acknowledges, it led us to a wrong direction. And that is that is a good place to start because now we know what not to do. We know what end result we do not want, and we can begin to work on a daily basis from there. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to go back to Brother Sal for another caller, and then we're going to check on Sister Mine and see how she's doing. So, Brother Sal, you there? Do we have any more callers?
Oh, yeah, we got a lot more callers standing by. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to 832-274. You're live on the air, 832-274.
Hey, how y'all doing today?
All right.
We're doing good.
Good. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me. What I want to say real quick is I definitely understand both views. I did a lot of research, and I kind of came to the understanding that sex in the Bible is maybe not equal to marriage, but there's a direct correlation. Meaning, when a man goes into a woman, that's marriage. You know what I'm saying? And I came from the Sunday church. I'm not deep into the Hebraic lifestyle like y'all, man. I'm maybe about 2 years deep in it, and one thing I noticed is one thing that I liked about the doctrine is that it was total opposite of the doctrine that was taught in the Sunday churches I came from. You know what I'm saying? Like the Sunday church, they was teaching us that, for example, I got an older brother. He was living with his girlfriend for 14 years. They had kids, so on and so forth. In my eyes, in God's eyes, they're married. They just don't have a state, they don't have a government, the government paperwork that says they married. But if you committed to a woman, y'all are having sex, y'all had children together, that's marriage. So I guess my question is, if sex doesn't, at least in God's eyes is what I'm talking about. In God's eyes, when you have sex with a woman, if that doesn't equal marriage, then what does? What makes a marriage a marriage? When I go to the courthouse and the state government tells me, you are now, husband and wife, I don't think so. I think sex is what, in the law, and I don't know if y'all covered this because I caught y'all a little late, but in the law, they talk about, I know that all sex constitutes marriage. I know some sex is adultery because if you have sex with a woman that's already married, that's adultery. You have sex with like an animal, you have sex with an animal or something, all those things. We know that's not marriage. That's not what we're referring to. But the Bible also says if you have sex with a virgin, even if you did it forcefully, you're gonna have to marry that woman. So what is your thoughts on that type of angle? You know, I definitely agree that, like you said, there's some other examples that show otherwise, but it seems like there's a balance in between. It seems like, you know, I mean, what are y'all thoughts? And I'll end it there. Thank you.
Sister Guy, just a caller.
I'm going to throw that one to Sister Mayana. Sister Mayana, you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Tongshi. The mic is yours.
All right. See, I think it's one of the first question. I think that a couple of things have happened over the course of the callers' contributions. One of the previous callers gave us a working model of the false dichotomy that I mentioned earlier. The idea that to say sex isn't marriage by default alludes to or advocates for promiscuity. Saying that sex is not marriage means that you guard that act. You don't engage in any sex. Not having sex is not promiscuity. So the conversation that we are having when we say that sex is not marriage is not to say go out and have liberal sex with whomever at your leisure. We are saying that you do not have sex at all until there are certain things in place. Which brings us back to the question that our caller on the line now has asked. If sex alone does not make life with us. Well, in all of the examples that we have of marriage, there is something that comes before the act of sex. The conversation usually ends with sex seals the deal. Sealing means it's the last thing. If it's the last thing, it's not the first thing. So that means there are things that come before it. Sex with an animal isn't on the table. Okay, sex with men, between men and women is what we're talking about. When we were talking about, we gave the example of Isaac and the iconic in the tent, out the tent, voila, abracadabra, we are married. That is not what happened. As we have had in this conversation, in previous conversations, and even in the first season and the first episode, we stated that there are steps. We proved in Scripture that before the 10th scenario, there was the father made the decision. It is not good for Isaac to be alone. This is not good. I'm going to take it upon myself to bring a woman to him. And Abraham makes that decision. In his stead, he sends his servant to go retrieve a woman. Does that servant go empty-handed? Absolutely not. There's a certain, remind you, just as the elder, and when she called in, stated that Yaakov encountered Rachel in the field, but did not take her. He took her to her father, got permission, created a covenant, had a celebration, and then was permitted to have sex with the daughters of Laban. That did not happen. It wasn't he caught up in the field. Because if it was the case that Jacob could have just created a marriage, he would have done so there. He had Raquel. She was right there. He already kissed her hello, had some of that already done. But he did not take her, because that is not what a holy people would do. When the servant went and came upon Rebecca, she was right there. He didn't go on the back of the camel, bring her back to Abraham. The terms of the deal were established between her father and his father's representative. And then there was an agreement, both from the father and the possessive bride. She received gifts. The family received gifts. There was tokens of Abraham's family's ability to provide for Rebecca, and then there's the innocent out the 10th scenario. Starting at verse 67 gives you woo facts, but starting from the beginning gives you order, gives you consideration, gives you intelligence, gives you consent, gives you the terms of the deal. 67 gives you sex seals the deal. But the deal had to come first. That is what we are saying. We are not saying that sex is not important. We are not saying that sex is not sacred. We are not saying that sex is not a set apart or holy act. We are saying that because it's sacred, because it's a holy and set apart act, it is not something that you throw out on the table and say that's it. It isn't. You cannot seal a deal where there are no components of the deal discussed. It's simply not the case. And that's what we're trying to say. And it was another interesting point. So to answer the question directly, what is marriage? Those other steps. All of those other steps. Those are the things that make the marriage. So we're talking about families, which is a very interesting dynamic that was introduced to the conversation. Well, what about the family? Interestingly, because of our placement in time, we are very individualistic. And when we think about family, we think about our family, what between the couple. But from a biblical perspective, when the family was considered by way of the elders and the ancestors, and the families became, the families were married. Families became, individuals did not become married. Families was a marriage of family. There's an exchange of a lot more than I love yous and googly eyes between the couple. The elders are involved. Consideration is involved. So another thing that one of the previous callers brought up was, and Sister Amuna very wisely honed in on, is this idea of the man having to mentally prepare himself. Now that mental preparation becomes necessary because he has forgone all of the things that Torah put in place to safeguard. You don't need to have a mental check if you have a whole bunch of physical checks. There's a whole bunch of physical checks. That conversation, that covenant, that written instrument, all of those are physical checks. You don't have to mentally prepare or psych yourself up to commit to somebody if you have all of these other accountabilities in place. Proverbs, the 25th Proverb tells you about that kind of mental preparation. It's the 25th chapter, and it begins with, I'll start with the 27th verse, and it's a list of, you can read the whole chapter. I encourage you to do so. But the 27th and 28th verses, the last two verses, it says, it is not good to eat much honey. So for men to search their own glory is not glory. He that hath no rule over his own city that is broken down and without walls. So this assumption that because a man may not be able to check his own spirit, this mindset has to first, you have to psych yourself up before a big game and get yourself, your mind in the game and prepare to do something. Those kinds of mental gymnastics are only necessary where you are not acknowledging the law and all of the other things that are in place. So those are the things that I wanted to bring out. The fact that some of these concerns are because we are an individualistic-minded society. Some of this is because men are looking at the fact that they have to, with this kind of idea, if they place enough emphasis on the latter part, the final portion, then they can commit to it and treat it as a righteous thing. And the fact that there is a false dichotomy that people are using when they want to forward the supposition that in order to accept the sex alone is not the weightiest of the matters when it comes to sex, or when it comes to marriage, when it comes to marriage. Because that it defaults to promiscuity, to understand that sex is not marriage. When we say sex is not marriage, we're not saying that sex is a free-for-all. We're saying that because it is sacred, because it is holy, because it is set apart, you wait. So God, I love the mic.
All right now. This is what it's about, the relationship challenge, where men and women, the masculine and feminine energy, come together, have a conversation coming from different point of views so that prayerfully we can get further beyond some of the things that have been holding us back in times past. So I want to thank everybody who has participated thus far, and if you desire to participate at this time, feel free to press 1. We're going to check on Brother Sal right now and see what's going on and see if we have any hands in the air, and if anybody wants to share, do so at this time. Brother Sal?
All right, the phone lines are hot tonight. Right here on Debate Talk Radio, we got more people lined up with questions and comments. Again, the number is 319-527-6710. 6239. Just press number 1 and we'll add you in the conversation. Let's go to the next caller. Let's see what it is. Let's go to 646-260. You're live in there.
Shalom. This is Akko Crystal. I'm fairly new in this way of life, and I was introduced into this way of life actually by a brother, and to say that I didn't know anything initially when I was first introduced. And the way that I was approached initially was not so much from the standpoint of in regard to the way of life, but more so because of the individual had interest, and which initially, I later on I began to see certain things, and it was a little misleading. And I think that eventually things went on, and some things happened that shouldn't have. But in the mindset, in retrospect, when I look back on everything, I realized and I saw certain things that, in speaking to the brother later on and realizing through conversations of things that we had, that he didn't have a full understanding of, what the relationship should be, and what things should be as far as, with the situation, and dealing with wanting to basically be married and have a spouse and all of that. He, I think, had that mindset of wanting to be married, and I know I did. However, the approach was, I think, inappropriate. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that, I think part of that too, part of the issue, and this is something that I'm seeing a pattern of, where is, and I have to say this, where is the respect, okay? It first should be, where someone does have interest or whatever. I mean, it should be done in a respectful way. I know back in the day, like with my parents, and when they were coming up, when they courted someone, and for them, courting wasn't them necessarily being in a sexual way. Courting for them was going out and dating, or going for a walk with the person, speaking with them, going to do things with them and with family and with friends, and that was the type of courtships they used to have, and the families were very, very involved. And I have to say this, especially Southern families, they're very, very involved with a dynamic, of the family, of people, of their children and their relationships, and if something was not quite right, someone would say something, and usually it was a male, and they would pull the guy aside, and they would pull his coattail, and say, listen, you're not respecting her, you're not doing this, you got to watch it, so, there was that type of accountability, and there was always someone that was there to give correction. I think the problem is these days that there isn't a lot of correction. You have parents that are not fully teaching their children at a young age once they get to an age of understanding when it comes to about sexual issues and about wanting to be married and all of this, having a more righteous mindset. And I think in some cases it's not taught, or it's just left as a topic that some parents are actually scared in some cases to even discuss with the children. And I think that if we are more open to start discussing things and having a more open dialogue, that this will be more productive, as they get older. And then even if there is someone that, if they never had that individual, that parent or uncle or, friend of the family to say something to them, there should be at some point, if someone sees, okay, and this could be someone who's a grown adult, if a male sees another male is not doing what they should be doing as far as respecting a woman or, you know, someone that they're seeing or courting or whatever you want to call it, someone should be saying, you know, maybe a brother, you know, a sister should, but should be saying something like, listen, you know, maybe you need to take a step back, or maybe you should be addressing that sister in a different way. You know, there's like I said, all of this comes down to accountability and actually respect for that person. I think if the brothers started to think more of the respect aspect of that, they would be less likely to approach a female or approach a sister in a negative way. And I think that's a very key thing, a very key issue. I think also, too, if the brother is really wanting, or if he really does actually have interest, or even if he doesn't have interest, if he really, you know, is bringing someone, if you're bringing someone to Yah, then that should be the first focus, basically. You know, it shouldn't be, because I have interest in this person, and then later on, let me tell them about Yah and what is good and it should be, if that's the case, that should be coming first. You know, that should be the initial message, and not, you know, about, you know, being with someone. And I understand that, you know, people do get to a certain age where sometimes they may be, where they'll get lonely, or they're getting, you know, basically kind of, what's the word? They may feel like, I guess in some ways, that if they don't do something at a certain point, that they may feel like they're settling in life. But I think that in essence, they need to take a step back and say, okay, if this is something that I really want, how do I attain this? And if so, how do I approach this? And I need to approach this in a respectful manner, in a way that, you know, so that one, you know, it's one that represents Yah, and that Yah will bless the union if it is meant to happen. And secondly, you know, so that this will be something that will become fruitful in the future. It has to be done, like it was saying, in a respectful and righteous way. And I think in doing so, that's going to make things actually less and less. There'll be less temptation to do things in the manner that most of us are seeing now, where you're seeing guys, and this is not just in our community, we're seeing this around the world, where guys are just going and they're just, okay, sleeping with this one and sleeping with that one, and, you know, they could be seeing one person and they start seeing someone else while they're seeing the same person. And there's no respect for any of those women when they're doing these things, you know. So we need to start changing the mindset overall, and that's basically what I had to say on it.
Thank you. I want to thank the caller. You said some very, very good and important things, and you brought up one thing that happens often is the very thing that you said, that oftentimes the men they merge their job of sharing certain information, and more often than not, a lot of women, that's how you knew the person who's first teaching you. The people get, I don't know what they call it. I don't know if there's a name for it or what, but the people get like infatuated with the individual who's sharing this truth. So you're having this major awakening, and oftentimes that person that helped you to do that, some people feel an obligation to that individual to be with them, and it's not always the case. And sometimes because of that vulnerability, many people, because they are new and they don't know certain things, and they're being shown certain things in the scripture, they begin to comply with what they're being told until they find out later on that that's not necessarily so. So I agree, you know, a respect level on both sides. The women have to respect themselves, or learn to respect themselves, and the men also have to respect themselves and respect the women as well. So thank you so much for calling in. I'm going to check on Brother Style right now and see what's going on the phone lines. Wow, we got the 9 so we're going to the 10 o'clock hour. Brother Shaw, you there?
Yeah, I'm right here. Yes, actually, we have like 9 minutes left on the air, people. 9 minutes left. What that means is if you're listening on social media, and once the time runs out, we're going to go into the overtime part of the show. So the only way to hear the overtime part of the show is by calling the number, 319-527-6239. Again, if you're on social media, you're checking out Debate Talk for You right now. Once the 9 minutes is up, the only way you can hear the rest of the show live is by dialing the number. Other than that, you can check out the archives later on. Go to iTunes podcast, go to the YouTube page, or go to Blog Talk Radio and check out the archives. But let's go to the phone lines. We have some more callers. Let's go to 601-566. You're live in there.
Hey, well, the topic is sex, marriage, and I don't think it is because we have scriptures that people don't go to in the Old Testament that tells us how to take a vow, and that a vow has to be made by mouth when you make a oath to someone. And sex was never just laying with someone, because in the scriptures, I don't know what scripture exactly it is, but it says that even if you lie with a woman, that you're still supposed to ask her father if you can, take her for a wife, and he still can refuse. So that means that sex is not marriage. And I think that, our brothers are using the scriptures unrighteously, and I think they hold the truth like the scriptures say, but not in righteousness, and it's kind of oppressing us as a body, and I think, that it's like the sister was saying, I don't think that they really respect us. I feel like because we're weaker, they pick on us, and I don't think just because we're the weaker vessel that we should be picked on, I think that they don't understand that the scripture says that even a man that ruleth, unrighteously, he will still pay for his sins. He will pay for that. And another thing that I see is that the men, they have been pointing the finger at us for a long time and telling us that Eve was the one who, convinced them, and they have not been taking responsibility, just like Adam was from the beginning, pointing the finger at Eve. And I think that that's, something that they carried as a generational curse for the men. And I think, the Bible says that, he keeps talking about the fatherless. And help the fatherless, because it's a lot of us that don't have fathers in the home, and they have ran out of us on us and have not taken responsibility for it. And it's still going on in the Israelite community, because a lot of stuff is going on where these where they're making babies and still not taking care of them, and just like they were in the world. But I think that, another thing is the custom that of having sex is, marriage and, multiple wives that came from Lamech and the heathen, and it was never our culture to do that. And but anyway, if you look at the scriptures in the Old Testament about the vows, we made vows by mouth. Sex was never marriage. It was always you made a vow in your father's house. And you can look up these scriptures in the Old Testament. We always made a vow in our father's house, and a woman had to keep her vow, and that is what marriage is, that you do it in your father's house, just like the Old Testament says. But people just use the Old Testament for the few scriptures that says that Abraham, Isaac met Rebecca, and they just flew off and had sex, and that's just not how it happened. That's not marriage. And the Apocrypha in Tobit, it said that they made a marriage covenant as a covenant of instrument of covenant or something like that. But it's in Tobit, I believe, chapter 7. And we had to take vows in our father's house. So I think that they're really off in a lot of these doctrines, and it's causing people to err. And it's causing us to have a lot of division because they're exalting themselves over the Most High. And a lot of the women are learning the false doctrines from them because they're the ones that say we have to learn, listen to them. But the scripture says that we're only supposed to listen to our husbands, and the women are supposed to teach the women. But they're trying to teach us. All these men are teaching us just, everything that they, different people's understanding, and we are erring and listening to these men over the Most High, and that's how we're getting caught up. Some of the the people around Israel are doing some stuff. So it's because we're not submissive to the Most High, and the men are calling us Jezebels if we don't submit to them, or if we speak up, and the Most High tells us to speak up about these things. So I believe we have a voice. It's a lot of, bad interpretations going around, and that, false doctrines. And I think Israel is proud, and they don't think it pertains to them, and it does. So I think the men need to be humble, and they need to, learn and be, retaught like the scriptures say. And I think that they don't need to be teaching other people's wives, because they just walk up to people and say, you're bald because you didn't listen to the Most High. That's another man's wife. And I don't think that they should be doing that. Like that happened on someone's status a few weeks ago. And, it's just all this stuff is coming out, because of the treachery of our men. And that's what the scripture says. It says that they would, deal treacherously with us. And I'm sorry, but I don't know if my time is up, but that's all I just want to touch on those topics because it's important. I think we need to talk about it. So I don't know, thank you for that. You can have it.
Thank you so much for the caller for calling in. Definitely, she said she hit on a lot of points. I mean, that sounds like some more show episodes as it relates to what's going on, what's being perpetuated, some of our thoughts into why, and some of the things that we need to do in order to correct this. A lot of times we say, oh, only the Most High, but the reality is that we have a choice in the matter as to whether or not we're going to do, because it's already left on record, whether or not we're going to choose good or evil. Right or wrong, righteousness or wickedness. And basically it boils back down to the self and what's our objective. And I would have to say, yes, a lot of the men are, and oftentimes they don't want to hear it, but it's true, a lot of the men are perpetuating some of these doctrines, a lot of these doctrines. And the women, as she said, are being shamed into, they say Jezebel shamed into accepting them. Even though they're contrary to the scripture. So that's definitely a whole nother show, because that's some real stuff we got to touch on. So I want to thank the caller for tuning in. I'm going to go back to Brother Sal and see if we have any other callers on the air at this time. As Brother Sal said, we're rounding down to the 10 o'clock hour, so you have to call in on the number. And I don't have it in front of me because it's a new number, so I'm quite sure Sal is going to run down that number for you right now. Brother Sal, you there?
That's right. The number is 319-527-6239. Make sure you save it on your cell phone, lock it in, so you can call at any given time. We have about 1 minute and 32 seconds left before it's off the air, the show. But you can still listen to the show if you call in. Again, if you're listening on social media, you have 1 minute. A couple seconds left to call in before the show is up on the air, but you can still listen if you call in. Again, the number is 319-527-6239. If you happen to miss the calling in on time, though, check out the archives later on. Go to the iTunes podcast, subscribe, and go to YouTube, and also go to Blog Talk Radio. Let's see. We have more callers. We got more callers. Let's go to 718-637. You're live in air.
Shalom, everyone. I just have a quick question. I'm trying to make it real fast. Let's say that a teenager who, nowadays where we live in, they are having sex at a very young age, 16, 17. She meets the older man, maybe 25, who's in law, takes her virginality, and then all of a sudden decide, well, she's, I guess, considered no longer fresh. He wants someone new. I know a person in that case, so I'm bringing it up. What's the, I don't even know what to say. How does that work? She's young. He's older. He fed her with, told her about the law, fed her with all these things, and now he pushes her aside. She's a young girl. That's my thing, my question.
Okay, I think just for reiteration, we're gonna throw it at one of the panelists, either Mayana or we haven't heard from Awar in a minute. But can you run down that question again for us, please?
What should she do as being a young girl who lost her virginality to an Israelite man who's over, I think he's like 24, 25, and all of a sudden he decided he don't want to be with her anymore. He wants remarry, I guess, other women. Her being a young girl, how could she deal with that? Maybe I should let her call the line herself, but how would she deal with that? Because he brought her in-law She comes from a broken home, so that's another story. Brought her in-law and then took her virginality and just left.
So we're going to get that to Brother Awar, and then we're going to hear what Sister Mayana has to say. Thank you for calling in. Brother Awar, I hopefully you heard the scenario. Young girl, same thing we're talking about, real scenario, in-law. The person who brought her in took her virginity and now has discarded her. What are your thoughts? What would you say to that person? What would you say to their family? Your thoughts, Brother Awar?
Yeah, well, that like she needs to really, if she would come up, like meet with some brother. I know some brothers she can meet with and get that brother name because he can't get rid of her. You know, he especially that he's a bird. He can't do nothing with it, and he knows that law. You know, a lot of these dudes be whoremongering, and that's the problem. There's no police in Israel, and they're getting away with a lot of stuff, man. You know, I wish, you know, she can call up, or I know some brothers that if she bring it to us, we'll go search that dude out, man. You can't do that. So a lot of these brothers are taking advantage of these young sisters, man. But tell her, don't go and go with another man because that's going to fall on her. You know, that's between her and the Most High now. Don't do that. You know, don't go to another man. See if she can work that thing out. And she need to get, you know, she can come on or get to me and I'll get with some brothers. We're stuck to that dude wherever he is. Because that's why our brothers is getting away with this stuff because there's no police in Israel. Everybody's just letting people do what they want to do. And I'm one of the cats, we don't play that crap. I come from the police sector in Israel, so if she want to call us up, let us know who it is, we're going to get away with that.
I'll definitely give her the number. I'm going to text it to her now. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for that. That was Brother Award. Brother Award say they're going to roll on him. But I have to agree, the accountability level is not there. The judges are not there. There's no fear factor. I think Sister Mayana said it earlier. There's no reason to be afraid because there's no accountability. So, I mean, some people may think like, wow, what did he just say? But the reality is men have to check men. You know what I'm saying? And so definitely that was very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Brother Award, Sister Mayana, your thoughts on that before we go back to the phone line?
I want to thank the for giving us another working model about the reason why we cannot rely on sex as being the tent peg, the thing that is holding the union together. Because of this very scenario, we have a young woman who followed this man and believes him. This man has decided that he no longer wants to deal with her. And what we have is brothers saying they're going to roll. I mean, well, I don't know what state she's in. I don't know if they're wise in. Or what are they going to do? They're going to go and speak firmly to him. They're going to wag their fingers at him. This is a man that has already entered into a woman, defiled her, and without any fear, walked away. This is a man that already has demonstrated that he has no fear of the Lord. So you're getting 12, 13, a gaggle, apostle of men to wag their finger at him. This is not a man that is going to be receptive of that because he already has demonstrated that he has no fear. This is why we spend so much time emphasizing that there are things that precede sex. Because if all of the other steps had been in place, there would be no question about what is her redress. We have a working model in Torah. When there's a man who decided that he had decided he didn't want to deal with her anymore, so he's going to lay an accusation on her. This young woman had redress. She had the ability to go back to her parents because her parents had evidence of a union between them. When we look at the working models in Torah, we see that parents are involved, that the communities are involved. There's a celebration step, which means not only was the family there, but the community was invited to bear witness to this. So this person not only had to deal with her mother, her father, potentially her brothers, her siblings, but the whole neighborhood was going to catch him and say, dude, what are you doing? We all saw you with her. All of us are going to create this pressure environment where you don't feel comfortable abandoning this daughter of Zion. We are explicitly warned against making whores of the daughter of Zion. Now, the fact that you can make a whore out of the daughter of Zion lets you know that you can stick your overriding her and not make her a wife. You can make her a whore. Now, if it was the case that sex was by default magically marriage, there would be no question of making a whore of her. You would only be able to make a wife of her. But Torah is clearly showing you that it's very possible to make whores of the daughters of Israel. So there's always a question, well, if we didn't get married, we're happy. You were defiled. You were defiled. Dinah, when she and Shechem had their union, nobody said, Steve got married. We're so excited our sister got married. Immediately, the response was, brothers were angry. Nobody was preparing for a party. Because sex without the other components, the safety components. We're not having these conversations to be party poopers. We're not trying to poop the party and tell you don't have sex. We're not trying to say that we're trying to put confines on intimacy. We're trying to say to you that intimacy, because it is so important, and because it is so sacred, and because it potentially creates these kinds of issues, that all of those other safeguards. The Torah provides. This is not Mayana. This is not Amuna. This is not the other quarters that have called in it and tried to caution against emphasizing this physical thing. And that's why it's very interesting that when we are talking about a holy covenant, that what we're emphasizing is physical act. On all other fronts, we like to present ourselves as a spiritual people, as a dignified people, as a people of integrity, as a set-apart people. But then we talk about this topic, suddenly, the most carnal, base, fleshly acts are what creates this holy convocation. So, I guess that I would like to be able to say, we have all these safeguards for the sister. Get the 18-year-old damsel. By all means, we have protection for her. Unfortunately, we don't. Because none of the safeguards that were created by Torah to protect her were observed. Like the sister said, there were no people who reared her first. Women are being wifed into the culture. They are not going through the appropriate steps. They are not allowed the time and space to be daughters, to be sisters, to learn to be women, so that they can become wives. Instead, they are coming in on the fourth step. I'm going to wife you in. Like the other caller stated, because I am interested in you, because I am attracted to you, because I want to be with you on an intimate level, this is what I'm going to bring to you first. This woman never had a chance to be a daughter. 18 years old. Still very much in her daughter's age. She was at the age where she was supposed to learn things. We have to nurture our daughters. We have to teach them. Their first introduction to union should not be by a man. A man should not be the first one to introduce her to this life. Do you think the Sarah didn't know what was going on until she got with Abraham? None of our ancestresses were ignorant going into their marriage bed. They were real. They knew the law. They knew what was expected of them, like the elders said before. They knew what it took to maintain the household. When we hear Proverbs, we talk about a woman building her house. These are capable women. These are women who are already women of understanding. They are not being led about by the nose, by the masculine influence. In the beginning, the Most High, I made them both. Male and female made he them. They were both made. You are supposed to know. You are supposed to be prepared. You are supposed to add to him. You're not supposed to be this empty vessel waiting to be filled up by him. Scripture says that the female was created meet, meaning she was worthy, suitable, fit, and appropriate. Already. This 18-year-old woman, unfortunately, was not prepared. She was not given the opportunity to be a wife. She was defiled. I would love to be able to say I have the prepackaged solution for this. And it would be great if you could just roll up on a guy who obviously already has no fear and suddenly, evoke this fear that he doesn't have, and he's going to go back to her and make merry with her. I don't have that usually package to sell to you. I don't know that it's going to happen. Ideally, it will happen. Ideally, he can have the conviction of spirit. But if you have to bully the man into it, then it already lets you know that the process is flawed. This is a flawed process. Even in Deuteronomy, you see that where a man has skipped the process and now has to punitively be forced to be with her. And it's not what it's supposed to be. Our convocations are not punitive. So that's what I wanted to say. On the next go-around, there's something I wanted to address, but because that's the question on the table, I wanted to answer it in this way. So with that, I yield the mic.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Thank you for the caller calling in with the question. Definitely. Real talk. This is what we're here to do. This is the relationship challenge. And I'm glad that we had this beautiful turnout on our first day back. I must have missed this. Took a little summer break and, we came in, it's good conversation. So definitely we passed the 10 o'clock hour, so social media has cut off those who are on the line. If you have something to say, feel free to press 1. I'm going to check on Brother Sal at this time and see what's going on. Brother Sal, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm back. Unfortunately, Award of Swordsman, it's the overtime part of the show. It's called Dropped. So I guess we'll hear from him the next time we have a relationship challenge. But we have some more callers standing by. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to 347-303. You're live in air. 347-303. You're live in air.
Shalom. Shalom?
Shalom.
Yes. Hello. Okay, you can hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to be brief because I know the call is over. The whole concept of this sex being marriage, people look at that, I know some of the Israelites have picked that up as their doctrine, a part of their doctrine. But the root of it is an even larger problem because, like I said, I started off as I started off as a Christian, raised up as a Christian, and I came into the Messianic Israelites. And I feel like there's a correlation between having that doctrine of an immaculate conception and not necessarily treating marriage as it should be treated, as in the Old Testament, when it was said that families came together, when a man did not honor, like when a man got a woman pregnant, having to pay a bride price to her father or having to marry her if he got her pregnant or had sex with her before marriage. I know in the early days, some churches used to uphold, holding people to accountability because they called it a shotgun marriage. But I notice now, even when you go into some of the quote-unquote churches, a lot of the women are not married, and quite a few of them have relationships with the pastor, even though he has a quote-unquote wife. They have relationships with this pastor, and they're hid in secret. Once again, that's another situation where men are not holding accountability. Sometimes it may not be a physical connection to the pastor as far as sex, but women are not married, but their total dedication is to the church. And I've also heard women saying, I'm married to JC. JC is my husband. I'm having a relationship with the Most High. And these concepts are Christian concepts. So here we are with some of the Israelites now. Well, sex is marriage. I don't need to acknowledge you in ceremony or go to your parents. We lay down and we had sex, so you're my wife, Israelite style. If we were to follow the laws of the Old Testament and the way of the Old Testament, we wouldn't find ourselves in these situations of guessing whether or not we're married or not. This pretense of an immaculate conception where Mary
she gets pregnant through the Holy Spirit coming over her, and she's pregnant with JC, but Joseph puts her away privately to protect her, even though the law back then for getting pregnant before you're married was to be stoned. And the thing about it is, once again, that's circumventing what is the law and what should be. So I find that these Judeo-Christian, I would say myths and fables do contribute somewhat to this silliness and not using common sense, wisdom, and accountability and responsibility. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Dehu.
Very interesting addition to the conversation. Like I said, it sounds like some spin-off type conversation because you did bring in the caller. I think that's Sister Aisha brought in some interesting points as it relates to the different doctrines that people just ascribe to. Like I saw somebody earlier on social media say that some men throw out the Apocrypha because of the Book of Tobit. And the Book of Tobit is going against sex as marriage. And so in order to not deal with Tobit, just throw it all out. So again, you brought up a very interesting point because we're all coming from different viewpoints as it relates to the scripture. So definitely, thank you so much for that. I know we're running on time, and so we're going to check on Brother Sal and the callers. We definitely want to make sure that everybody who wanted to speak has an opportunity. If there are any men out there who want to let their voice be heard, you can do so as well. It's not any one party beating up on any other party, but at this time we have to be transparent and honest about what's actually happening and how do we begin to fix it and remedy the situation. So, Brother Sal.
All right. I see we have one more person that pressed number 1, but we have a lot of people tuning in. Feel free to press number 1, guys, if you have any further questions. It's the overtime part of the show. Just press number 1 and we'll add you in. Let's go to the next person, though. Let's go to 856-536. You're live on air.
Shalom, everyone.
Hey, shalom.
Can you hear me? Hey, how you doing, Brother Sal? It's been a minute.
All
right. This is Eliyahu from Jersey. I've listened. I came in late. I'm sorry because I had some other things to do. But I've listened to some of the things that everybody had to say. I think that my personal opinion is we as a people are dysfunctional, and when you're dysfunctional, it's practically impossible to right yourself in a situation when you are dysfunctional. So what you have to do, you have to take people that are not dysfunctional, that are not raised in the traditions, like the sister just said, of Judeo-Christianity, and right yourself with those people, because those people will be excellent teachers. They'll be excellent in in the way that they initiate contact with people. I guess to say, and saying that we as a people in America have been dysfunctional since, I guess to say, slavery days, even for those who were here before slavery, meaning, whether they be, Hispanic or Native American type of people, we've all go through some type of trauma, or like they call it today, PTSD. But I didn't like what the sister had called in and, proposed a question about the brother. I told my sister when she was younger, she's 29, that if she decided that she wanted to date a guy for like 6, 7, 8 years and let him become your friend before you even decide on whether or not, you want to initiate to have any type of true relationship with him in that aspect. Because after 5, 6, 7 years, you know his intent, you know his what he's about, a little bit of everything about the guy, especially, if he decides that he wants to stay around for that length of time. I think today, in the early 80s when MTV really got big and videos came out, we have over-sexualized our society. Everything that we see in American society has been sexualized. When I lived in Europe during the 70s and the 80s, they have been over sexualized, so which means they have been desensitized to it as well. So they're not overindulgent into those type of things. Americans, however, we covered up until, like somebody said earlier, until the late 50s, 60s, until the free sex era and things of that nature. Our people particularly, we were never into those things. So we have taken on different customs. And I think it was like when y'all was saying, when we as a people have taken over Greco-Roman customs, really. And we have to go back to the root of the problem. I always say this to people, if you don't know the root of the problem, you can never solve the problem. Half of our problems is at the root of a century-old issues that we have, engrafted into ourselves, engrafted into DNA. We have taken pagan, heathenistic customs, into ourselves. And by the words pagan and heathenistic, it really doesn't mean, that people are just crazy and wayward in that aspect. It means, customs and cultures that are foreign to our own. And when we take those things into ourselves, we manipulate it, we use it, we gentrify it, we start, acclimating to these things that are not normal to us, and we don't know how to behave because it's not part of our DNA structure or pattern or even brain waves and thoughts. And when we add that into the Torah, we're dealing with things that are foreign to Torah practice. Brother said it earlier. Brother Dean Parker, most of us probably is his friends anyway. Dean said a very good thing that this year particularly, and I noticed it last year, that nobody noticed that we've been keeping high holy days and feasts this year already. We're coming to the end of the year, and nobody has noticed that we're not really keeping the high holy days and feasts, for instance. And the reason why is because nobody has paid attention to the harvest season. Dean himself is a farmer. He's been paying attention to the harvest season because he has harvested. And he paid attention to the fact that we're not in alignment with that. So if we're not in alignment with the harvest season, we're not in alignment with Torah. If we're not in alignment with Torah, we're not in alignment with the Most High. If we're not in alignment with the Most High, then we as a people cannot align ourselves correctly in our modern everyday workings of thought pattern, spirituality, culture, anything. So we have put ourselves into position to align ourselves with the Torah, which is the will of the Most High. This is the reasons on why we as a people cannot, put ourselves in position here in America, Europe, Asia, wherever we're at across the whole world, because we're everywhere. When we start to do those simple little things first, like I said, it's the roots of the problem. Then we can, positively, put ourselves in better position, giving our children, our daughters, for instance, let me start over here. I have 7 girls, and I have 1 boy. None of my girls are married. One of my girls date, the rest of them do not. And the reason why is because that's the only one that decided, well, she's grown too, but, she didn't date until she was grown. The rest of them are not, grown yet, and I will never let them date. I will never let them marry a man, number one, who does not keep Torah. We have to practice these things at the home first. Like we've all said here tonight. Practicing at home is the first lesson of anything. It's the first areas of education, of rearing a child, of discipline. Of the practice of keeping a culture. Most of these young brothers and sisters that are coming in and waking up today, they're waking up into something that they have no idea of what they're waking up into. So instead of them coming into actual schools of thought, as we used to centuries ago with the sages and things of that nature, we don't have that today. What I see today is we have a lot of people who are masquerading as Hebrews. And I'm, using the term loosely because I don't want to insult nobody, but I see that that's what we have. We have a lot of people who were Christians who have become Hebrews because they say that they're waking up, they've had, a greater understanding, and that's great. But when you have taken, like the sister just said, the culture of Christianity into what we do today, then you are still a Christian in that aspect, and you have yet to acclimate yourself to a Hebraic standpoint or a Hebraic culture. Because, number one, you know nothing about a Hebraic culture. The only things you know today, now, okay, well, I'm a Hebrew. Okay, that's great. and I admire you for understanding that. But study, show thyself approved, like it always says. But see, study comes from years of study, not from 1 day, 2 days, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, sometimes even 10 years for some people. Some of us on here, like Manana herself, is an educator. I'm an educator. There's other people that are on my friends list besides them that are educators. Some of us, grew up this way. Some of us didn't. We have to look to those, like King Solomon himself said. If you want to learn something about the culture, then you have to go to those who are educated within the culture to learn the culture, not come into something. And so today or tomorrow, I'm the teacher, I'm the more. On Al-Habi, whatever the case may be. It takes years of study and understanding to get there. When we have new people that come into the faith, the same thing. These people should go through a regimen, because without going through a regimen, it's like, and I hate to say this, but let me use Jewish people for an example in this area. Anytime that a Jewish person, a person in the world, wants to become Jewish, and they go through those the black suit people, the Hasid people, they take you through a regimen. They make you learn everything before you can ever convert. And our own people, we have people that are just as educated as they are. We need to do the same thing to our own people. That way our children are not taking advantage of men who are lusting after their own desires. Because these same men who are lusting after their own desires, taking these younger women and throwing them away, discarding them, this is still hurting our community, because it's no different than the free sex movement in America. But these younger women are being discarded. These are children. These are my children. These are your children. They have feelings. They have, emotions. This is a pattern of abuse that keeps replicating itself. And as long as we continue in the pattern of abuse, we're not healing our people. We're actually keeping it into an area of destruction. So in order to create something that's not going to, keep us in a pattern of destruction, you build a foundation that will, emulate a pattern of success. So we take from what we've already learned in, different educational systems. There's plenty of them. We could take psychology. We could take anthropology. You know what I mean. We can study from the old customs of our peoples in other countries as well, and even from our own country. We have some great examples of leaders from all over the world and we can emulate that into what we have with the Torah. And this is the part of, really truly learning the basics of Torah, even really learning the language over again, because a lot of us do not, and I repeat, really truly, do not really understand what the Torah says because we don't read the language. But these basic fundamentals will help us, to evolve into a better group of cultural Hebraic people. And this will help our children to marry better. We want to build a culture. We want to build a society. We want to build a lot of different things. If we was truly working in unity, we'd be able to come together, buy 1,000 acres. There's plenty of acreage all over this country, and build a whole town, city, and whatever, and unify ourselves and build everything that we would need from the ground up. I was watching something on Facebook the other day. A brother said something very, very monumental, which is if we are not raising our own crops, building our own towns, founding our own businesses, and trading within ourselves, then we're doing absolutely nothing. So the more we talk, the less we're doing. We have to take these talks that we come into great discussions like this, and we learn from one another, and we learn and we go out and we build relationships with each other within these communities where we're at, wherever we're at in the country. And we take these smaller communities and we make larger communities and so on and so on. This is building the foundation and a great structure. We have plenty of educators. We have plenty of teachers, engineers, doctors, and everything that we can do everything that we're talking about. But we have to take an initiative other than us talking. There's plenty of ways that we can build. I mean, we all have the education. We need to do it. And back to the the subject matter with the marriage thing. The marriage is just really simple. We have to make contracts, which is what the ketubah is. The ketubah within our own language means a contract. When we make a ketubah, the ketubah will prevent brothers from leaving our children because they have signed a contract. You know, in any contract, you are held accountable to what is in the contract. When we have people just, you know, blatantly getting together without a contract of marriage, they're stating that I disregard the law of Torah. If they disregard to the law of Torah, then they disregard and free disobedience into Yah himself. And anybody who is found in disobedience to the Most High is liable, as some may say at certain times of history, death. Now, I mean, I understand we don't go through that today, but yes, they're held accountable in that mannerism. And we need to hold these brothers accountable by making these brothers, teaching our young women first, that a brother, if he's not coming to you, and I'm going to use the Muslims, for example, to ask for a sit-down, which means to literally sit down and let's talk and have an intermediary. And let's take it back to the old school where when you were courting, you courted on the porch of your own house, and the boy came over, your parents had the window open, and they looked at you while the whole time, so there was no putting no hands on nobody. There was no kissing or nothing. There was a shaking the father's hand when he left. You know, these are the things that we need to reinitiate. You know, and this way there will be respect. If a man is not respecting a daughter in the beginning, or even vice versa, because we have women who do not respect men just as well, then there will always be divorce. There will always be children who will grow up without fathers or mothers and so on and so on. I mean,
yeah, I apologize. You got a lot to say, man. Putting that knowledge out there. But we got some other callers standing by. Muna, anything you want to say, guys?
I'm here. I'm listening. I know we're getting down to the hour. I want to thank the caller for calling in. He dropped some real good information. One of the things many things stuck out to me, but quickly I wanted to touch on that. Maybe we could talk about it at another time. That the thought that sex is marriage didn't just spring up out of anywhere. It actually is on the tail end of the experience here in the West, where during slavery, because you were prohibited from marriage, and many people, the men did not have to take care of their families, and your women and children were the property of the master, it gave the thought that all I needed to do was deliver myself, and I was done. And in name, I could be called husband, and in name, you could be called wife, but truly I had no ability to have an obligation to you because there was someone over me that determined whether or not I stay or I go. So when you look historically, like you said, you will see that this didn't just pop out of anywhere, and it may be in the residuals of the genes, because a lot of people are talking, quickly, and I'll give it back to you, a lot of people are talking about what happened after slavery, but that's a short time as you look at over 200 plus years of this being embedded in the individual. And right after slavery, the record books show that there was a spike in marriages on paper because the people could not marry on paper. But thereafter, the marriage rates began to decrease once again. And so it's just a few generations before it got to our point, like 2 generations if your grandparents was born in the early 1900s, you know, your mother and now you, and if you're a little bit younger than us, then a 3rd generation. But it wasn't that many generations out of that mentality of not really actually being able to legally marry and be accountable for your family. But like I said, that's a whole nother topic, but as I study the history, the sex equals marriage, that's what the master told you. You know, cause whatever made you kept going to work tomorrow, he'll tell you whatever you needed to hear in order to do that. And that's kind of what we actually adopted. So that is a maladopted behavior. But, Brother Sal, that was my 2 cents on the matter. You could go to the next caller.
All right, I see. We have one more person that pressed number 1. And, okay, let's go to 347-731. You're live in air.
Okay, Shalom Uveka. This is Zakina and Naomi. I want to speak. I found it sort of perplexing that marriage would be labeled as a blood covenant, even though I understand that the blood is is the blood for a virgin is present. However, that would not cover widows and divorced women who married again, and therefore that would not be considered a blood covenant. Nevertheless, it would be still considered marriage when they married again, and it would be held just as sacred, I believe, as when they were virgins and married for the first time. So I don't know that it may be completely accurate to call marriage a blood covenant rather than just leaving it at covenant, for instance, or maybe a different type of covenant. But certainly I wouldn't say that it is a blood covenant, because I'm of the school that understands full and well that sex does not equal marriage. Otherwise, any man who laid with a harlot would be married, and that would mean that a lot of men would go running for the hills. But that's another issue. So that's all I have to say on that matter. Zehu.
Thank you for that, Iman Naami, coming back with that. Like I said, that we're getting a lot of more conversational topics. So definitely we could come back and chop it up on that one as well. As we wind down to the almost 10:30, 11 o'clock, we're gonna see what Sister Mayana is saying before we go ahead and wind down here, Brother Sal. It's been a very eventful night, very interesting, a lot of perspectives. Hopefully, we walk away from this with something more to think about as it relates to the choices and the advice, too. One thing I have to say before I go to Sister Mayana, sometimes people are afraid to tell the younger ones who are coming in, and Award touched on this, hey, watch out for what you're doing, because the world tells you, I'm grown, mind your business, you know what I'm saying? I can do what I want to do. And then oftentimes when people get in these compromising situations, then they want to come back and say, oh, man, you want to know X, Y, and Z. And the Torah says if you see someone going to do something, if you see trouble and you don't want them, the blood is on your head. And so when we see younger people coming in, if we have not said anything to them, we also are to blame. If we are not to say, hey, be careful with what you're doing, X, Y, Z, if you don't give them a heads up, we are to blame, because it is that we know this information, we know that what the statistics, we know what happened, we know the doctrines that are out there and the pitfalls, and we don't warn anyone, whether it be young men or young women. And so sometimes the young women don't listen, and sometimes the elders don't speak. And so both people are responsible. Both parties are responsible in this situation because, again, just like the brother was saying, you have the parent and the family that is the defense. So if you don't have parents and family as a defense and they're not doing their job, well, of course, unless the person is ultra strong-willed, they're going to fall into that pit because they don't have the tools to navigate around it. And so collectively as a community, we have to speak up about these things, not just in these forums, but when you see somebody moving a bit reckless, pull them to the side, and then love, let them know something. Like, I'm notorious for that. I'm like, you probably not going to like what I got to say, but at least I say it, and then it's not on me. Whatever you do after that, it's on you. And some people have come back and said thank you, and some people didn't listen and was upset. But nonetheless, you have to sound the alarm when you see, especially in this area, things are going awry. So with that, we're going to check on Sister Mayana, and we're going to wind it down, and then we're going to give it back to Brother Sal, and we're going to close out. So, Sister Mayana, the mic is yours.
We're getting really into the night. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to really start to dissect and take apart some of the more common arguments from Scripture. We did a lot of talking about how we feel about things and what we have observed happening, but I really was hoping to hear some of the Exodus 22 or 16 kind of arguments so that we could take that apart. But one of the things that did happen, and that from the callers, which I thought was important, and I think we should talk about that, is I was talking before, a little bit about the manipulative language that is used when framing or trying to advocate for sex being the tent peg, the determining factor, or hook in these conversations.
one of those things is the idea of we don't want to deal with the white man. The white man's the white man. I think that it's great that Amuna pointed out correctly that in these attempts to escape the conditioning of the white man, we have, in fact, embraced it wholeheartedly. The white man has decided that, we're not going to give you any type of legitimacy. If you have you have sexual relations, that's really all you need. But you have to understand, like she said, like Amuna said, the idea, the mentality of the European during this period of time was that you were an animal. You were an animal. We don't when our pets mate, we don't give them record their marriage. They're mating because they're animals. You have puppies together. And but when the man became free, when he was no longer the property of the European, he didn't sow his seed everywhere. Marriages were, instead of having Betsy on John's plantation, on Master John's plantation, and Mary over on Master Mark's plantation, he had the one wife in his house. That is what the free man did. The slave took his slave pass and made Mary on all these other plantations and then took himself back to his own master's house. So this idea of we don't want permission from the white man to marry, I don't need a certificate. And they say with what scorn, and they're very sardonic and sarcastic and caustic when they talk about, I'm not going to write these things down. Okay, understand this. And I'm going to bring the Creator into this because the Creator has a relationship with Israel. And he has made marriages. We are called his bride as a nation. We're called his bride. The Most High did not make a vow to us where there is no token. All of the covenants that we have entered into with the Most High, because this is the thing with women are being told. You're looking for the white man's way. The Most High doesn't need that. Okay, well, let's see what the Most High means. When the Most High made a covenant with Abraham, there's a physical component to that covenant. You might be familiar with it. It's called circumcision. I don't know what could be more physical than circumcision, but that is a physical, observable covenant mark. When Moshe was set afloat, and the princess found him, the Egyptian princess found him, she immediately knew this 3-month-old baby, a Hebrew baby boy. Do you think she recognized his accent or his circumcision? Okay, there's this physical mark of the covenant between the Most High and his people. There's a song, Ribbon in the Sky, right? The ribbon in the sky is a rainbow. The Most High, when he entered into a covenant with Noah, he didn't have a secret red light special. They weren't sticking around. There's no secret lovers in the background. There's a big rainbow in the sky. There's a public declaration that I have made a covenant with you. So this idea that you don't need to have physical tokens because the Most High doesn't deal with physical tokens is insane. There is nothing in Torah that suggests that you do not have to have a physical token. These conversations that we have had also reminds us of the token we talked about. I think I mentioned it. The Torah, I mentioned it, of the sheep. Right? So when Laban allowed for Yaakov, when he just accepted Yaakov was leaving with his daughters, he made a covenant. And what happened with that covenant? There was stones. Something physical. There was a physical mark, a physical sign that they had entered into a covenant together. It wasn't some a handshake deal, and it was something that you could return to as a reminder that this covenant happened. This idea that these women are asking you for some unholy, unrighteous, unbelievable thing that has no basis in Torah, and the fact that we are trying to intimidate. And what these are terrorist tactics. Like a woman said before, she said that we are teaching our daughters to go against their own intuition. The thing that tells them, I need to be protected in this space. I deserve to be protected in this space. If you take this idea that, first of all, even in our current situation, you are able to have certification, which is not the same as a license. A certification is certified something has come to pass. It means that, for example, if you the male, has become ill and your wife has to make decisions for you, and let's take, for example, your treatment involves something that has a pork product or some life-saving measurement. Your mother wants you to have it. The wife says, we can't do this because it has elements that my husband can't participate in. We don't do these things as Hebrews. Your mother shows your birth certificate. Your wife shows her motel receipt. Laughter ensues, and the mother gets her way. Woman in her motel receipt has no ability, no legitimacy, nothing to protect this covenant. So when you're thinking about what I have to lose by entering into some written instrument, something that's going, and that's another thing. What are you afraid of? If there's a document that says that is your wife, and she has legitimacy to someone outside of you and your imagination, people on the outside can also observe this thing. What do you have to lose? Why exactly are you pushing against that type of legitimacy? In the state of Pennsylvania, it's called a Quaker marriage. In the state of Pennsylvania, if you get a written instrument and there's two witnesses, which is, sounds like Tory to me, two witnesses, that's it. You're married. It's considered marriage. Marriage is called self-united marriage, to that effect. But in Pennsylvania, that can happen. In Colorado, that can happen. In D.C., that can happen. In Maine, in California. These things can happen. This is not the same as the common law marriage, which is just if you cohabitate long enough, then, we'll acknowledge you. And there's very few states, maybe the same amount of states, so maybe 5 or 6 still allow for common law marriage. But even in that, you have to have some other type of record. You can't just have them living together. You have to have records. You have to have bank statements. You have to have things in each other's names, things that written instruments that tie you together. And what they will do is they will record your union, and you will receive a certificate, which is a common law certificate instead of a marriage certificate. But it's a certificate. They certify things. Earlier in the conversation, there was a concession that when it comes to any other kind of deal, going back to the idea of sealing the deal, when it comes to any other kind of deal, we understand that we have instruments for that. We have our deeds. When we go to a department store, you have gathered your articles, you get to the door, the little alarms go off, security wants to check all those items yours. You present the document that says you purchased it. You don't say, take my word for it. You don't pinky swear that you are the legal participant. You have legal rights to this thing. So I say all of this to impress upon you that the argument that we don't have a Torah precedent for physical articles, physical tokens of marriage, physical tokens that a covenant has been established, that is 100% not the case. Even when the Most High talks about describes his marriage to Israel, I believe it's in Ezekiel, he talks about how he has given her gifts. I didn't talk about how Rebecca received gifts. Israel. It's said to have received tokens, like bracelets and all kinds of glittery trinkets. The Most High did that. But you don't want to give that to this woman. You don't want to give her the deed. And then you want to tell her to be quiet and take it. And these women, because we didn't allow them to be daughters, and we didn't allow them the time to be sisters, and we didn't allow them the time to be women, and wife them into this situation, there's certain confusion as to why these women aren't prepared. why they don't know what to do next. There's one of the callers called in and asked us to give consideration to the fact that there's an absence of respect. You know, if you have a body of people, we have whole congregations that make a video vision of calling black women or women of color or the women who are Israel out of their names. They are dripping with hatred, dripping with criticism, dripping with animosity towards the daughters of Israel, but then want to engage in, you know, a Hebrew version of Pokemon Go and collecting them all. And that is why we have so much dysfunction. One of the callers says, you know, we're coming from these broken places, which is true. They're coming out of the Muslim Alliance as a minority state. But we have a guideline. I mean, this requires literacy and diligence. This does not require a whole, you know, type of reprogramming. You just have to read the book and decide that I'm going to follow Torah because it's right there. It's something we know what to do because it's written down for us. Which brings me back to this idea of the ketubah, which just means written instrument. Doesn't mean necessarily a marriage certificate. Ketubah just means a written thing. When the Most High, and I want to say it's Exodus, what was it, Exodus 19 maybe? I don't know. I think it's Exodus 19. When Moses is asked what's to gather the people at the foot of Mount Sinai. There's a process. The men have to abstain from sex. They wash their garments. They dress in white. And what is the Most High doing? This is when the Most High is going to enter into a covenant with us. What does the Most High do? What do we know about the Ten Commandments? According to Torah, it says that he wrote it with his own finger. It wasn't a really pinky swear into a covenant. It was that the Most High wrote something down for us. And when that declaration was made, the people answered. When the Most High said, "This is what I'm going to do," what do you say? The people said, "I do. We will." So, you know, I think that we are confusing in our zeal. We are confusing what is important. Oh, we don't want to be like the white man. Okay, well, you're not being like the white man. You're being like Torah. When you commit, when you write things down, when you put sex last, because the carnal is the last thing, the spiritual is the first thing. Because we are a people of integrity and a people of fear. So, with that, I appreciate your time, and I give the floor.
Thank you so much for that, Sister Mayana. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Hopefully the conversation was edifying. Sister Mayana done closed it off for us, so I'm not even going to go any further. I'm just going to check on Brother Sal, see if he has any last words, any upcoming episodes. We're doing it every other week this time around, so we won't be on next Monday, but we'll be on the following Monday. So definitely tune in for that. Brother Sal, would you like to take us out?
Oh, yeah, most definitely another classic relationship challenge. I appreciate the home panel, of course, and, of course, my co-host, Amuna Israel, for presenting another classic show for you guys. Check out in the archives later on. And, again, like you said, it's going to be every other Mondays. So go check out the relationship challenge. We're going to come back on the air 2 weeks from now. All right, so I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Have a good one. Welcome to another episode of Debate Talk for You. I'm your host, Sal Showtime, and welcome back to the show live. I appreciate everybody out there that's been supporting the show over the years, and we want to have your continued support by going to www.paypal.com. Use the email debatetalkforyou@gmail.com. We need your support in order for us to have the show available to the masses each and every month because, of course, we have monthly fees in order for the show to remain on the air. So once again, we appreciate the support out there, people. Again, if you want to show your support, go to www.paypal.com and use the email debatetalkforyou@gmail.com. So if you love what you hear, you love the content, you love the segments, and the special guests that come on the show, please keep us on the air. We love you guys. Again, show your support. You know the email. One love.